Happy Hour Friday starts 97.3 ESPN. I'm your host, Mike Gill. What's going on, everybody? Hopefully you're enjoying your Happy Hour Friday. It's a beautiful day down the Jersey Shore so far. It poured rain yesterday. I had no idea. I was inside all day, but I know I was just outside, and it is a gorgeous day as we get ready for Happy Hour Friday. You know, when the Eagles play on Monday night, it kind of loses the luster a little bit for a Happy Hour Friday because then it's like there's no game on Sunday, right? You got to get ready for the game on Sunday, on Friday, and they've kind of thrown us all out of whack. But we will have Happy Hour Friday fun here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning producing today's show. You out there. Sorry, I got off to a kind of a wonky start. This camera was like, it's like tilted to the side. Like, what happens to the damn thing? I mean, who comes in here and like mutilates the camera? So those of you who are watching on the video, I'm kind of like tilted to the side here. And yeah, it's very odd. I don't know how this happened. Oh, that's a little straighter. There we go. That's a little better. So we're a little fixed on that side. So we got a lot to dive into today on the show. Obviously, we'll get you ready for the Eagles and Cowboys. We'll weave that in and out because it is Dallas week. And I feel like, you know, this week has kind of been taken over a little bit by Ben Simmons, as we talked a little bit about yesterday. But there is some news from Eagles practice today. Jordan Mailata has a knee sprain. He got rolled up on late in practice yesterday. He is still being evaluated. And there's a possibility that Jordan Mailata does not play in the game on Monday night, I would guess. And that means you would see Andre Dillard be the left tackle in that game. And, hey, here we go. We're already talking about multiple injuries on the offensive line. Now, we can't verify that Mailata's not going to play. We do know he did not practice today. We'll see what kind of injury designation he gets. Now, remember, they play on Monday night. So the Friday injury report doesn't necessarily mean, you know, normally on Friday, that is your final designation for the week. Tomorrow with the Monday night game will be the final designation for the week. So if Mailata is unable to go, it would be Andre Dillard. You know, another injury now for the Eagles on their offensive line. Obviously, Brandon Brooks is out, and left tackle Jordan Mailata was absent from practice today for what the team is describing as a knee sprain that he suffered at the end of practice. Now, per the team, Mailata had his knee rolled on towards the end of practice. He played through the pain. He then had his knee checked out by the medical team. And I guess we'll see what happens from here. And as the Eagles now have to play the Dallas Cowboys without Brandon Graham, without Brandon Brooks, and possibly without Jordan Mailata. And these are the things that we talked about at the beginning of the year. Can the Eagles compete? If they're healthy, they can compete. When they start to lose guys, that is a problem for them. Like, can they play without Brandon Brooks? Yeah, they drafted Landon Dickerson in the second round, and you're hopeful that Landon Dickerson is able to, provide quality play in the interior of the line. That's what you drafted a guy in the second round for, is that this moment. Now, Tim McManus from ESPN just tweeted out that it's an MCL sprain for Jordan Mailata, and it is not considered to be a serious injury. Now, I think he should be able to play through that. I think that's one of those things, though, that he's going to constantly have, issues, for a couple of weeks here before that thing kind of gets a chance to heal up. That means he doesn't get to practice a lot. And when he doesn't get to practice all that much, you have a situation where you have a guy who obviously doesn't have a lot of experience. All the time that he can work with a guy like Jeff Stoutland, you're looking at that as an opportunity for him to continue to get better. And this is a tough spot for the Eagles because they need this game. If they realistically want to be a playoff team, they have to win this game on Monday night. I think it's far-fetched to assume that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be a playoff team without winning this game. Is it a possibility that it could happen? Sure. Do I feel confident about it? Not necessarily. And I'll tell you why. Because the schedule coming up is brutal. And it's not that the schedule doesn't lighten up a little bit. It does. But there's a lot of games on this schedule that you're thinking differently about all of a sudden. One of them being, look, The Carolina Panthers, they didn't look great last night, but they're 3-0. They have a very good defense. If you lose this game against Dallas, you're now 1-2. I'm going to chalk up a loss to Kansas City. That will be 1-3. You're at Carolina. I mean, you're on the road against a good defense. I don't know that that's a game that I feel comfortable saying that you win. Then you play Tampa Bay on a short week. At Vegas seems like a different game than it did when the schedule came out. So up to week 7, you could be 1-6 if you don't win this game. You play Detroit, winnable game. You're home against the Chargers. It's a winnable game, but Chargers are pretty good, man. At Denver, it's a winnable game, but Denver's pretty good. I mean, they're not a pushover. The Saints, it's a winnable game, but it's not like you're playing the Jets. Now, you do have the Jets coming up, but you could realistically get to that Saints game. You know, if you don't win this game against Dallas, you could be in a situation you have one win going into the Detroit game. And then after that, you that's the halfway point of the season. That's why I picked Detroit. After that, there's some games that you feel like, okay. But my point is, with a loss to Dallas, and if you're like 1-6, and okay, I start to win some football games. I beat Detroit, I'm 2-6. I beat the Chargers, I'm 3-6. I beat the Broncos, I'm 4-6. You're still under 500. And I would imagine by that time, if you lose this game to Dallas, Dallas has a game on hand at you. And I would imagine they're at worst like 6-4. That's why, to me, this game is pretty important. It is pretty imperative that the Eagles get this game on Monday night. And we'll talk a little bit more about it. The Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. A lot to dive into today, including Dallas week, which I want to get into that whole situation because Nick Sirianni had the Beat Dallas shirt on yesterday. And, people, whether or not that's the smart move to go out and kind of wear the Beat Dallas shirt on. And, of course, now you've got the Dallas people responding to it. I like the fact that Nick Sirianni is in the spirit of the rivalry. Like, that's all. He understands the importance of Dallas week. He's not coming in as a new guy downplaying it like, it's not that big of a deal. It is a pretty good deal. The fans think it's a big deal, and it's cool that the coach is on board with it. What made Dallas week something different? It was having the fact that Buddy Ryan, who everybody loves in this town, he thought it was cool. He thought, like, when the Washington football team would hire a coach, they would hire a coach, and the coach would come in and say, look, we have to beat Dallas. Like, that was the fun of getting ready for these rivalries. That's what sports are about, getting ready for the rivalry, being a part of a rivalry. And the fact that the coach comes in and he understands it. He's not downplaying this. He knows that the fans like this. He knows that the fans value this game. So Nick Sirianni should not be chastised for adding to the rivalry. He should be, embraced for embracing the rivalry himself. As somebody mentioned, see, I don't understand this way of thinking. Messages coming in from Brian. He says he hasn't been around long enough to realize the impact of Dallas week. Nice try, though. Like, what is the coach has to be here for how long for him to acknowledge that the Dallas Cowboys are a rivalry for him? Right? Buddy Ryan came in, and the first thing that's what these coaches are hired for. They're hired right off the bat. When you get hired in Washington, it's to beat Dallas. When you get hired in Dallas, it's to beat Washington. It used to be anyway. When you get hired in Philly, the coach better understand that it's big to beat Dallas. Another message says, just hope he calls better plays than last week. Now, that one I can jive with. 609-403-0973. Throughout the day, I'd like you to, the one thing in this game, too, I want to go to the Mailata stuff. If Jordan Mailata, because we talked about this with Rob Motti yesterday. Rob Motti mentioned the fact that the Eagles, and this was brought up in the press conference yesterday, the Eagles have a huge weight advantage on the defensive line against the Dallas Cowboys, right? They have a massive offensive line against a pretty small offensive line when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. The offensive line starters are going to average about 50 pounds more than the Dallas defensive lines per player. And one of the reporters asked yesterday if that is something that Nick Sirianni plans toward, that he game plans to, knowing that we have this massive offensive line and they have a smallish defensive front. And Nick Sirianni said, sure, we're always thinking about every matchup we're going to get in a game, whether it's it could be the size of a tight end versus a defensive end and the strength of or size of an offensive line, defensive line, or the speed of a running back and a linebacker. So, we're looking at those things all the time. Everything is taken into account when game planning. And I said in the past, it's always about the players first. And what you're saying is exactly right. It's player versus player. So it's players and matchups and then the plays. And that's always been taken into account. It didn't seem that was taken into account on Sunday against the San Francisco 49ers. And that's why I bring up that exact quote. He was asked a good question. Hey, do you understand that you have a big advantage up front against the Dallas defense? And he's acknowledging that he does. But then in the same breath, he says it's always about the players. And I didn't see that from Nick Sirianni the other day. On Sunday against the San Francisco 49ers, I don't think it was about the players. And I'm not saying it was about Nick Sirianni, but I don't think he did a good job of making it about the players. That's the problem in that situation. 609-403-0973. Download the free mobile app. It's free in the Apple Store or Google Play. You can message us through the phone. And also, if you want to watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, you can send us a message through the video stream as well. If you're watching the show on our Facebook, on our YouTube channel today, you can put a comment in the comment section here as well. Jeff chimes in, says it's huge deal. Beat Dallas, obviously. Jalen checks in, says, yes, with the Chiefs and Panthers next, you got to win this game. He also chimes in and says, my lot of news is absolutely terrible. Need him to play this game. Well, the news isn't terrible. The news is, he is injured. He has an MCL sprain, and unfortunately, that's going to hamper him. We'll see how much. Does it mean he is out for this game? I don't know. An MCL sprain, I think, is something that you probably, put a brace on, and you probably kind of deal with the pain for the most part. So I would anticipate, we'll talk to Sal Pal at 3 o'clock. Later on in the show, Jeff Kerr will be here, so we'll get some updates. Andrew DiCecco. We will kind of get an update each hour here on the Sports Bash about what will happen, what the feeling is around Jordan Mailata. I don't think they're going to make an announcement. I would imagine that he will be listed as questionable when the injury report comes out a little bit later on today. I would think he gets the questionable designation. I don't think they're going to list him as doubtful. I could be wrong, but I think they're going to do questionable, and they're not going to come out and say, because I think Sirianni will talk again tomorrow. I think tomorrow, right? And I don't think he'll come out tomorrow. Although Mike Garafolo just tweeted about 10 minutes ago that indications are that Jordan Mailata will not play Monday against the Cowboys, and it will be Andre Dillard in his spot. Sources say Mailata's absence should not be long-term. Mike Garafolo tweeted that 19 minutes ago. So there you go. Right when we started the show, he put that tweet out. I missed it. But it looks like now Mailata, see, I said I thought he would play, and I was wrong. It looks like he will not play. So maybe they just want to make sure that he's okay, have him sit out a week to get that knee back to strength so that they can have him for the long haul. But guess what? You're already in your second week of the season, and you're going to have an offensive line that is going to have – and the funny part is, yeah, you thought Brandon Brooks would be a guy that possibly could get hurt, but Jordan Mailata is now a guy that got hurt. Lane Johnson was last year. Isaac Seumalo last year. Brandon Brooks last year. Now it's the other guy, Mailata. I mean, they just can't catch a break. And look, they can't have this happen. Jordan is a huge part of this team. They just signed him to that deal. They value him that much to give him a contract after 10 NFL games. It shows you what they think of him. You're going to have Andre Dillard. Look, Andre Dillard was drafted in the first round. He wanted to be a left tackle. He got beat out by Jordan Mailata. He needs to show other teams right now. He doesn't want to be a backup anymore. He better play his ass off on Monday night. That's what he needs to do. He needs to go out there and show other teams. He has to be aware that he is playing this game to show the other teams in this league, hey, if you need a left tackle, I can be counted on. That's the only way you can feel pretty confident about going into this game. With Mailata dealing with a MCL sprain, he got injured at the end of practice yesterday. Now, he was not put on the injury report yesterday. I guess the injury report came out before practice. I don't think so, though, because the injury report comes out around 4:30. In fact, it was on yesterday when we had Adam Kaplan on. So you would think the Eagles would have known, although it did say that he practiced yesterday and he just kind of went through the pain. And maybe it wasn't until after the injury report came out that he said, hey, look, my knee's bothering me. I don't know. That just seems to be a little weird. Now, I'm not calling out the Eagles and saying shadiness or anything because they did come out today. He did not practice. I'm sure he'll be on the injury list today, and he'll probably be listed as doubtful now. I mean, now that I'm reading the update from Mike Garafolo, right? Think about this. Mailata against Randy Gregory, Micah Parsons, what they do with Parsons. We're going to talk to Todd Archer later on in the show at 4:25. I'm very intrigued as to what they're going to do with Micah Parsons. What is the plan for Micah Parsons? Is he going to go back and play linebacker? Because they're getting healthier on that line. By the way, some news last night in the game, McCaffrey. I hope you took the under last night, by the way. Also, Nadu gave you a winner yesterday. He took Davis Mills under 213.5. He was terrible. He wasn't actually that bad, but I didn't think that Houston was going to score all that much. That Carolina defense is pretty good. Although they did lose J.C. Horn. I think he's out 2 to 3 months. But McCaffrey is also expected. But Hubbard came in. You know, these are the things that end up happening in the NFL at certain spots. Running back is one of them. You have this running back in McCaffrey who, by all accounts, is one of the top running backs in the game. I mean, in most of your fantasy football leagues, he's probably the first pick, right? But we see this all the time. Star running back who gets paid the big contracts gets hurt, and then the next third-round rookie comes in and you don't miss a beat. And then you're like, my God, we're tied into this McCaffrey. And Hubbard comes in, and they didn't skip a beat on offense. I mean, Hubbard, it's like the movie, what was it, The Program, when the senior running back gets hurt and the freshman guy comes in and the running back, and, you know, he's so exciting. It feels like that position, this story happens all the time. It's happening in Dallas, where Zeke Elliott's getting all the money, and they got Pollard. And now they don't know what to do. All right, text board is open, 609-403-0973. I see the text messages starting to come in, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. That's the text board. Get involved throughout the show. Send me your questions. I'll answer them throughout the day. Also, download the free mobile app and hit us up through the app in the Message Us button on the free mobile app if you're listening on the app, and also if you're watching the show live. Hey, today we will announce who will be playing golf with us at the LPGA Pro-Am. You have 2 hours and 20 minutes to enter. So if you want to enter to play golf with us, you still have time. Go to 973ESPN.com right now to enter. We will announce the winning name at 4:40 today on the Sports Bash. The winning name today will be announced during Happy Hour Friday with Pete Thompson at 4:40 today on the Sports Bash, and you could be the fourth member of our Pro-Am foursome. Wednesday's LPGA Pro-Am. It is a tremendous event, I'm telling you. I mean, I don't have to play. Like, they ask me, I elect to play. I go to them and say, and I stink at golf. I don't ever play. This is the only time I play all year long. It is that much fun. It is a great time. So if you want to be a part of our foursome, you have a chance to enter right now. Go to our website, 973ESPN.com. The Sports Bash is brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Follow me on Twitter, at Mike Gill Show, and we will have a lot of fun on this Happy Hour Friday. Stick around when we come back. Another moment. I'll explain next. A happy hour Friday edition of the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. I'm Mike Gill, at Mike Gill Show. Follow me on Twitter. Got some news on Ben Simmons you might want to hear. Stick around for that. Yesterday we talked about Bryce Harper's moment. He had a moment in the game on Wednesday night that basically won the Phillies the game and kept them alive. There was another moment last night, and we talked about moments leading to other moments, and that if your team realistically wants at the end of the year to do something, like be remembered for something, when you remember things about a certain team, we went over things when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, you remember moments along the way that got them there. 61-yard field goal to beat the Giants. Carson Wentz spinning out, finding Nelson Aguilar in week 1. You remember certain moments of games, key wins. The Aguilar play in week 1 kind of sprungboard a season that you didn't have a lot of expectations for. But that play there was memorable because it happened in the first week of the season. And then the field goal against the Giants and kind of sprung board from that. We talked about Patrick Robinson, and we talk about, the Philly special and Corey Clement. All those moments along the way that got you there. If the Phillies want to make the playoffs, they need more moments. They're starting to get them. They had a moment on Wednesday night from Bryce Harper. They got a moment from Thursday night from a very unlikely source. And that was Ronald Torreyes last night. Ronald Torreyes essentially saved the Phillies season. Yes, Ronald Torreyes hit a 3-run home run last night that saved the Phillies season. Because without it, who knows what happens in that game? You're down 6-0 to the flippin' Pirates. Now, I was at Chickies and Pete's yesterday doing the show in Egg Harbor Township. And when we were done, my girlfriend and I had dinner. We sat and had dinner at Chickies and Pete's, and we're watching the game. And it's 2 outs. Bases are loaded with 2 outs and 2 strikes. The pitcher's up, and they flash on the screen, first big league at bat. And we're like about to walk out the door. And I'm like watching the TV, and I'm like, it's bases loaded. There's 2 outs. There's 2 strikes. And this guy's never had an at-bat before in his life, Overton. And I'm thinking, all right, I don't need to stand here and watch, because I think he fouled one off. I'm like, I don't need to sit here and watch this. The pitcher's up, blah, blah, blah. And what happens? I get into my car, and I hear Scott Fransky say, and it's 5-0 Pirates. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? Aaron Nola, again, coming up small. Now, I give Nola credit. He gutted out 6 innings because they needed him to, and he settled in after that. So give him a handshake. He deserved it. An attaboy, if you will. But the season wasn't saved by Nola. It was saved last night by Torreyes. Torreyes' hit, as the team is down 6-0, is exactly the moment that we might remember. Because if the Phillies end up making the playoffs and winning the division, the 4-3 win against Baltimore and the 12-6 win against Pittsburgh, they will be moments that we remember. The opposite field home run that JT Realmuto hit last night, and by the way, JT Realmuto, for as lackluster of a season that he has had, 3 for 3 with 4 RBI. He's starting to really get hot at the right time. If they can get JT, who went 3 for 3 with 4 RBIs in a game he didn't start last night, if they can get JT and Harper to continue to give moments, he might have a shot. I hate to sit here and say, hey, look, I was the guy who said I don't think they'll finish 500. I don't know that they're going to make the playoffs. And I still kind of feel like they got 3 left with the Pirates. They got 3 with Atlanta, 3 with Miami. That's all that's left on the schedule, people. It's not one of these things now where you have another month to go. No, that calendar doesn't flip for you one more time. This is it. So Ronald Torreyes' moment is a moment that if the Phillies make the playoffs and who knows what happens, we're going to start having to remember moments. We're going to have to start remembering moments, and that moment there, they need it in the worst way. They needed that moment in the worst way. And then after that, they just started, Miller had the hit. The home run by Real Muto gives you a little bit of breathing room. It all just kind of started to, much like the game they had where they were down 7-0, and they came back and scored like 17 unanswered runs or whatever it was. Every time we seem to want to count this team out, something like this happens. So I don't know what the message is here. Odubel, by the way, 3 for 5. Had a big night last night. Him, Real Muto, both had 3 hits. But the big knock is the Torreyes moment. It's not one of those where were you when moments, but man, if they're playing a game in October, you got to look back on that night when Ronald Torreyes' 3-run home run helped grab the lead for the Phillies. Make no mistake about it. They need more moments. They need more moments. But in this series here, the Pirates are a disaster of a team, a terrible team. And you have to take advantage of the schedule that has been given to you this season. You can't look back on the 2021 season and say, man, we were 2 out with 9 to go, and we had Pittsburgh and Atlanta. We have Gibson pitching tonight. We traded for Gibson to be able to help us in this moment. Suarez tomorrow, who has essentially given you great outing after great outing after great outing since entering the starting rotation. The only wonder I have is if all season long, that 5th spot in the rotation has been a mess for this team. And if the game that has a blank on Sunday at 1 o'clock, the bullpen game, I would imagine you're going to see Medina again. If those 2 games, they have 2 bullpen games left. If those are the 2 games that end up biting you in the end, Sunday, September 26th, and Saturday, October the 2nd, there's 2 bullpen games left. Every other game, you got Wheeler versus Anderson, Nola versus Morton, Gibson versus Fried, Suarez versus Luzardo. Can Wheeler, if needed, I would imagine he could pitch that game on Saturday, October 2nd, instead of a bullpen game. It's going to be very interesting. But guess what? They only got to that moment because of Ronald Torreyes last night. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. The impact of possibly losing Jordan Mailata. We'll talk to Sal Paolantonio. Plus, do the Eagles have enough defense to stop the Cowboys? Sal Pal in 25 minutes. Sports Bash brought to you by Jenkins. Call Jenkins for heating and air conditioning installation service and maintenance, plumbing, drain cleaning service, 609-641-6440 or jenkinsplumbingheating.com. Mike McGarry is here from the Press of Atlantic City. Make sure you check out his Friday must-win column in the Friday edition of the Press. He joins me, a little sparring match on the other side of the Phillies, in, out, indifferent, Eagles, Cowboys. We'll get it all coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. And don't forget, if you want to be a part of the LPGA Pro-Am, we need a 4th member for our foursome. Be me, Pete Thompson, an LPGA professional, and you. All you need to do is enter now. Go to our website, 973ESPN.com. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City is brought to you by Calvi Electric, now offering residential services for your home or business. Online, calvielectric.com. I'm Mike Gill at Mike Gill Show. It's a interesting weekend, NFC East, obviously. So we got Eagles and Cowboys. We've also got the Phillies in play. We got Ben Simmons in play. Flyers are actually back at camp today. We got a big high school football weekend. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City is here to talk about it all with us here on a happy hour Friday. What's up, Michael?
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. I love when everything's in play here. We got it all now. We can kind of
busy. It's busy.
Very busy. Let's start with
best time of the year, I think.
I love it. It's early football. Basketball starts Tuesday. We got the hockey back in, and the baseball down the stretch they come. So we'll hit on everything here. Let's start with Eagles Cowboys. You're a Giant guy. I always wonder, for the Giant fan, who is the Giants team? Is it Washington, Dallas, Philadelphia?
Yeah, I don't know if the Giants are so focused on any one of the three. I think it kind of shifts according to who is the sort of power in the division, or who you have to beat in the division. So the New York does not seem to get caught up in Dallas week or Eagles week or Redskins week. I say, whichever one of those three teams is kind of riding high at the moment, that's the team that kind of captures the Giants' attention. It's more of the overall division thing than one particular team, basically.
So we got Dallas week for Philly. Obviously, I am I like the Eagles Giant week. Like, to me, that's more like the Eagles Cowboy week feels like this manufactured fan thing, but it is a very important game on Monday night, which we'll obviously dive in a little deeper when you're back on Monday. But this game feels like it has some importance. And now you got Mailata possibly not playing. You got Brooks already out. You got Graham. It feels like whatever positive vibes you had after week one are starting to siphon through the sand of the hourglass.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember, everybody that was optimistic about the Eagles, and I wasn't one of those guys. Everybody was optimistic, said, well, if the offensive line stays healthy, it's one of the best in the NFL, and they're going to be pretty good. And what I said at the time was that offensive line is not staying healthy, and it didn't take long for me to be proven right, unfortunately for Eagles fans, because they'll be playing probably now, it looks like, without two starters, without their left tackle on Monday night. And that's a tough thing to overcome when that's the strength of your team. So what was the reason for the optimism was the offensive line, and now the offensive line is banged up just 3 weeks in the season, and now you begin to stretch, right? At Dallas, Kansas City, at an undefeated Carolina team, home to the Super Bowl, defending Super Bowl champs, and then at a Las Vegas team that's off to a 2-0 start. Boy, the next 5 weeks do not look fun.
No, you're right. And this is why I feel like this week 3 game with Dallas feels like it kind of is even more important than normal.
Well, you have to come out of here. And, you don't want to come out of this stretch 1-6, right, on a 6-game losing streak. Even 2-5 is going to be tough to overcome. So you've got to get one of these games. And I guess, I don't really think they have much of a shot on Monday night. I think Dallas at home with that offense is going to be tough to beat. But, any win in this stretch is crucial, because, you are looking at possibly, being the underdog in all 5 of those games right now.
Yeah, Mike McGarry, you're right. I think this has that feeling that if you don't get it, you're 1-6. The back end of that schedule, which is supposed to be the easier part, has some teams all of a sudden that are playing some better football that you didn't anticipate. And you don't have any division games until almost December. So you got to get this one Monday. We'll talk more about that Monday. I talked yesterday about Bryce Harper's throw being a moment. Like, when your team wins, you look back, there's moments. That throw is a moment. Last night's Torreyes home run, that's a moment. Are we starting to feel these moments are adding up at the right time?
Yeah, I am starting to get a little optimistic.
Gary.
It's a little scary. I was thinking about this the other day. The Phillies have their flaws, and we all know what those flaws are. And I think a reason for that so many fans have had a hard time buying in on this team is that I think we can all say, as presently constituted, they don't really have a long-term future. This team's not going to be together 5 years from now. Certain guys on this team might be here 5 years from now, but this team, I don't think we're going to be looking at Ronald Torreyes or Brad Miller 5 years from now. But I'll say this about them, they are resilient. They do not give up. They are gutsy, and they do provide those moments. Down 6-0 last night, they come back and win the game. Second time in a week, they've been down 6-0 or 7-0 and rally to win. And the reason I'm a little bit more optimistic is JT Realmuto. JT Realmuto is 7 for 15 on his homestand. He has had a bad season. Offensively, he has not been the player, the signed JT guy that we were all chanting for last year. He has not been that guy this year, but he's hot now. And if he can stay hot and give them another bat to go with Harper, and they continue getting big hits from guys like Torreyes and Miller, and McCutchen comes through, who knows? Today's a big day. Atlanta's playing 2 games out in San Diego. The Phillies, with a win and 2 Atlanta losses, they could pick up a game and a half today. So today is a pivotal day in the NL East.
Yes, the one thing is the Phillies still have 2 bullpen games scheduled to come. I'm imagining Medina will get those games, but, he'll give you 2 or 3. You hope in the end that you look back and say that those bullpen games were the reasons why. I get there's other reasons too, but in the moment, we're talking about moments that you had to go with a bullpen game in the heart of a pennant race.
Right. Well, the only consolation there is those bullpen games are going to come, probably this Sunday against Pittsburgh and then against Miami. So you're not going to be throwing one of those bullpen games in Atlanta against Atlanta Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I said that the goal for the Phillies right now, I think, to have a realistic chance is get to Atlanta a game back. If they get to Atlanta a game back, I think they have a realistic chance.
All right. Mike McGarry, Press of Atlantic City, his must-win column appears in Friday's editions of the Press. We'll get to that this week because it's a cool local story that you haven't seen in 30 years. We'll talk about that in a minute. That being said, Ben Simmons, obviously, this saga continuing. We talked about it the other day. Doc Rivers said what he said. Ben Simmons said what they said. Now, where do we stand as Monday's media day? Tuesday they report. What will media day sound like? If Mike McGarry gets the first question, what's the question you want answered?
Well, the question is going to be, I think the number one question has to be asked to Joel Embiid. And the question is, A, what does he think of Ben Simmons and Ben Simmons' stance that he's taking? And 2, does Joel Embiid think that the Sixers are doing enough to help him win an NBA championship? Those are the 2 prominent questions that I think need to be answered on media day. What does Embiid think of Simmons and what Simmons is doing? And does Embiid think that the Sixers are doing enough to help him take advantage of his prime and win an NBA title?
All right. Well, so yesterday, obviously, there's so much that continues to kind of spill from the comments from Doc Rivers and then, of course, what the Simmons camp says. Now you're starting to hear, well, Cleveland's very interested and this team's interested and that team's interested. Do the Sixers siphon through those offers now and do they take the best one? Because there's some talk about my reason. There is a report that this could happen within the week. I don't know that I'm buying that.
I don't know if I'm buying that either. Again, the NBA season is interminably long, right? It's 82 games. It's going to start on October 20th and it's going to end sometime in April. So you have time. So if I'm the Sixers, I am in no rush. I am not trading Ben Simmons for 60 cents on the dollar, 70 cents on the dollar. I am not accepting a lesser deal. I am making a deal that benefits the Philadelphia 76ers and possibly helps the Sixers take a step forward. Now, I think to do that, you're not going to trade Simmons, as I've said before, heads up for something. You're going to have to package Simmons with, and I think maybe a Maxey, maybe a Thibault, maybe some picks. Maybe you're going to have to get another team involved. But if I'm in the Sixers, I'm not panicking. I'm in no rush to trade him. And again, I don't see Simmons showing up. He's kind of laid down a gauntlet. He's not going to go through all this and then all of a sudden on Wednesday morning wake up and say, you know what, guys, I've changed my mind. I'm showing up in camp. So he's not showing up for training camp. I wouldn't be surprised if he sits, if he's out until early November. I see it kind of being resolved much the way the James Harden situation was being resolved, except instead of showing up fat and overweight like Harden did and playing poorly, Simmons is just going to be in shape, posting Instagram videos and sitting out till a deal is made in early November.
I mean, isn't this easy for him, though? If he doesn't want to be there and he doesn't think the team's going to trade him, just come in and play and let other teams say, okay. Now, I contend, Mike, that he does not want to face the music because he knows his game has not evolved. He knows he's not going to come out there hitting 70% from the free throw line. He knows he's not going to go out there, and he knows he cannot face these fans if he doesn't come back with those things. That's why he doesn't want to be here. Yeah,
I would take it in another direction. I think, and in listening to him in post-game press conferences and even after Game 7, as bad as that game was, most of us would say as bad as that game was for him, he got on the post-game Zoom and pointed out, well, hey, Trae Young shot 5 for whatever, kind of who was guarding Trae Young. And I grabbed so many rebounds. I really think that he thinks he doesn't want to be here because I think he thinks his talents are not appreciated by the Philadelphia 76ers. So in the words of LeBron James, he wants to take his talents elsewhere. And like I said, I just don't see him sort of throwing down the gauntlet and now coming in and, waking up Wednesday or Thursday morning and saying, you know what, guys, I overreacted. I was wrong. I'm coming in. I don't see that happen. I think it's over. And I really think that in his mind, he thinks he is not appreciated by the team or anything. And forget it. You know what? Forget about what Doc said after Game 7. Forget about what Embiid said about Game 7. The thing I think that sticks in Simmons' craw, and again, this is just me speculating, is he was benched in Game 7. He was taken out of the game and benched in Game 7. And I know 7th graders and 6th graders that can't get over that. So Simmons is not getting over that, basically. He was benched in Game 7, and he's never getting over that.
Are you benching 7th graders, McGarry? Is that what's going on?
Occasionally it has to be done,
Hey, I feel your pain, man. I've dealt with that as well.
I don't do it with a smile. There you go. I'm not happy about it.
It's never easy to bench anybody. All right. And a lot of times they're not being benched. It's just, hey, it's a long summer.
Right.
All right, Mike, big high school football weekend, and you got a nice story for must win this week.
Yeah, the Middle Township football team, they'll be hosting Cumberland Regional tonight down there. Middle Township is 3-0 for the first time since 1992. The schools down there below exit 10 on the Parkway, they've kind of struggled with football. The kids work during the summer at the boardwalk, seasonal businesses. What do you want to do? You want to ride waves in August and July, or do you want to lift weights and work out in pads and equipment? So the lure of the beach down there is tough. But Middle has kind of turned it around. They're 3-0, a chance to go 4-0, and it's been such a long time since they've been 4-0 that no one connected with the current program can remember the last time they were 4-0. So 3-0 for the first time since 1992, and a nice story for the Panthers down there. And, of course, the big game out at Millville's historic Wheaton Field tonight. I'll be heading there right after this. Millville at 3-0, St. Augustine at 3-1, 6 o'clock kickoff. You'll see about 14, 15 Division I football players on the field in that game, including some big-time recruits such as LaQuint Allen, who's headed to Syracuse, and running back for Millville, and Kanye Udo, running back for St. Augustine, has offers from Rutgers and Boston College and a host of schools. So, hey, you want to watch college football, you can watch it on TV Saturday, but you want to see some players that are going to be on your TV, head out to Millville and watch them tonight at 6 o'clock.
All right, there you go. Mike McGarry's weekend reactions right there. Check out the Press of Atlantic City for his must-win column. A great story on Middle Township. They don't get a lot of pub for football, so go check out their great start that they've got. All right, Mike, enjoy the weekend, and we will talk to you Monday.
All right, we'll see you Monday. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, man. Mike McGarry from the Press is brought to you by Calvi Electric, now offering residential services for your home and business online. CalviElectric.com. Thanks to Mike McGarry jumping on board as always here on the Sports Bash. When we come back, it's a Sal Pal Friday. ESPN's Sal Paolantonio joins me next here on the Sports Bash. Hey, Sal Pal, do the Eagles have enough defense to slow down Dallas? That might be the biggest story in the game. Find out his answer next. Hour 2 of a Sports Bash Friday. Happy Hour Friday turns into a Sal Pal Friday. ESPN's Sal Paolantonio set to join me right now here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. The ESPN senior national correspondent, Sal Paolantonio, right now as it is Dallas week. And Sal Pal, thanks to our friend Johnny G and the Burger Realty team, joins me right here on the Sports Bash. Happy Hour Friday, Sal Pal Friday. It's Dallas week. Sal, what's going on, my friend? All is well, man. All is well. We love the Fridays, of course. The Monday night game gives us a little extra time to stew on this one. So let's kind of get into the meat and potatoes of this Dallas week here, Sal. And you talked about this, so I want to get it right off the top on your Instagram, Sal Pal ESPN. And the question, I guess, is, do the Eagles have enough defense for this high-powered Cowboys offense? Let's get right into it with that.
Has sort of reverted to a running quarterback. And, the one thing I learned from Ron Jaworski very early on was points come out of the passing game, Mike Gill. Points come out of the passing game.
Well, we know the points come out of the passing game, and as you mentioned in the video, 12 points isn't going to get it done, or 12 passes isn't going to get it done. And a lot of those passes down the field, Sal, we saw them take a lot of shots, something they didn't do in week number 1. Now, Nick Sirianni said he drug himself through the mud this week, so he self-scouted. You said last week on Friday, get the tight ends, Ertz and Goddard. You thought they would have a big week. They only have 11 targets in 2 games combined. They have to have a bigger role, don't they?
They do, and Devontae Smith has 15 targets, but only 8 catches. So you go back and you look, and there are plenty of instances where Goddard in particular was open, and Hurts passed him up and threw the ball downfield. When your number one receiver has 15 targets and only 8 catches, that's a very low percentage. That's a very inefficient target ratio. So he's clearly forcing the ball to Devontae Smith, and that's got to stop. It's something we talk about on the matchup show this week with Greg Cosell and Matt Bowen. The ball distribution needs to be more Mac Jones-like. It needs to be more. If you look at Mac Jones, he's throwing the ball out to James White. He's throwing the ball out to the tight ends. And you have to do what Garoppolo did in those 2 drives, the 97-yarder and the 91-yarder. He was a very efficient passer in those 2 drives, 11 of 12 for 110 yards on the 2 touchdown drives. So he had 12 throws and 11 completions. And, you look at Jalen Hurts and he only had 12 completions the entire game. You cannot, Michael, win a lot of football games. You can win if you have a dominant running game and a dominant defense. But it's very, very tough to do. It's an inside straight if you only have 12 completions. One thing I learned from Dick Vermeil, and I mentioned Ron Jaworski, and Ron was the one who taught me this. The formula for victory is the number of completions plus the number of rushes. You add those 2 up, and invariably, the winner of the game has a higher total than the loser.
Well, Sal, you mentioned running and the fact that they could be down 2 offensive linemen now. Brandon Brooks, we know, is out. Now Jordan Mailata looks like he is possible to miss the game. So we're already having flashbacks to the 2020 season where multiple offensive linemen could be lost. And you wonder, what that would mean for Nick Sirianni's offenses. If he has to go with Andre Dillard at left tackle, he's already going with Landon Dickerson at right guard.
Well, that means to me the first persons. So Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator, who was brought in because the Cowboys were notoriously bad on defense last year. He was brought in after he was let go by Atlanta. Dan Quinn, in his history, has always been a cover 2 guy. Rush 4, keep the safeties deep, both of them. But you look at the defensive profile now of the Cowboys, it's single high safety, let the dogs loose on the quarterback, beginning with number 11. You know, they've had injuries at defensive end, so they have figured out by design and by luck that Micah Parsons is a pass rusher.
Right.
And they have used him everywhere. They have used him on rundowns. They have used him in coverage. And they have used him sort of like in a Charles Haley elephant role, where he is going to rush the passer from every position on the defensive line. And they have found something with that guy. So they got to identify number 11, because number 11 is going to be chasing down number 1 all night long.
He mentioned he's on the hit list. Sal Paolantonio, it's a Sal Pal Friday here. What are a couple of the other spots in this game that you're kind of keeping an eye on? Because obviously the Eagles offense, without 2 linemen, they might have to simplify some things a lot here. So even with Parsons, that defense is a little vulnerable, although I thought they played much better last week.
Well, Mike, I think simplify is a good word. I think you have to shrink things down. In other words, do what Brady did last year in Tampa and his offensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich. Use more offensive linemen on the field. Tighten up the formation so that you have 2 tight ends on the field. They've always lived in 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends under Doug Peterson, and they had a lot of success until last season, until the quarterback started throwing into the wrong uniform. And they got, massive injuries on the offensive line. So you've got to help them out. 2 tight ends, chip with the back, make sure the ball is coming out of Jalen Hurts' hands, high percentage throws. Look at what Garoppolo did in those 2 drives against Jonathan Gannon's bend-don't-break defense. High percentage throws. Sometimes you get to hit a home run with Deebo Samuel on that 40-yarder on that slant, and sometimes you'll hit that with Devontae Smith if you hit high percentage throws underneath. Let him use his ability to outrun the defense and to be a runner after the catch.
Sal, I know we're short on time, so I want to get your thoughts on the actual game itself and, how important it is, because Philly doesn't have a division game until November 28th after this, and there's a stretch of games where they are going to be an underdog. So how important is a Week 3 road game at Dallas this year?
Well, it's important. But first, it's important that they've corrected certain things offensively, especially when it comes to Jalen Hurts. The quarterback must be productive from the pocket in the passing game. Sustain drives, remain on the field, move the chains. That's what I'm looking for primarily in this game. If that happens, but they lose a tight one to Dallas, I don't think anybody is going to scream and yell, okay? Because we all thought, looking at the schedule, that losing to Dallas on the road was probably going to happen. Then you have Kansas City and Tampa within the next 3 weeks in your own building, in Lincoln Financial Field. And we chalked both of those up to losses. The big loss was last week. That was the one that's hard to swallow because that was a game where the defense played well enough to win. You only give up 17 points at home, Michael. Michael, you rushed for over 150 yards at home, and you have first and 10 at the one. I mean, first and goal at the 1. Michael, you got to win that game, right?
Sounds
right about that?
It feels like you listened to my opening on Monday. I feel the same way. 17 points, you got to win that game at home. You could have been up 17-0 in that game, and that's why you got to have this game on Monday night. All right, Sal Pal, where are you going to be on Sunday?
I'm going to be next 2 weeks in Foxborough. This week is, laying the groundwork for Brady's return, and then the big Sunday night football game. I'll be anchoring ESPN Sports Center coverage from Foxborough for the next 2 weeks. So I will check in with you. I mean, that's a big assignment, right?
You know where by the way, you know where I'll be tomorrow? Fenway Park.
Oh, fantastic. Yankees, Red Sox. You're sitting up at the Green Monster, I hope.
I don't know where my seats are. I know they're close to the dugout. They're close. They're good, man. They're good. I will be there tomorrow. But I know you got to run, so I'll text you.
No. I'm good, Michael. I'm good for a couple more seconds here. But I really would love to be at that game tomorrow, and I've always wanted to sit up on the top of that Green Monster. But I heard, A, it's impossible to get tickets.
Yeah.
B, they're super expensive. And against the Bombers, I would imagine it's got to be really tough.
Let me tell you, I'm going tonight, and I was going to stay at the hotel. This was gifted to me. And I said, I'll just stay at the hotel. The hotel was like $800 tonight. I said, okay, maybe I won't stay at that hotel tonight.
You and I, you know that I'm a closet seamhead, Michael. I love baseball. And, I love the fact that you're a baseball coach for young people and all the success. By the way, I was in Ocean City last Saturday. You probably heard the story because it's such a small town. So I'm in Ocean City last Saturday, and I had a friend's bicycle, and I'm motoring along the boardwalk, and the seat isn't working for me. So I stop at Olds, and I said to the gentleman, I said, can you do me a favor? I'll pay you for your services. Would you mind adjusting the seat a little bit for me and maybe, oiling up the gears? And he goes, are you Sal Paolantonio? I said, yeah. He goes, I hear you all the time on Mike Gill Sports Bash at 3:15 on Friday. So I want to give him a big thank you and a shout out. And he told me that he was a former baseball coach for you, Mike Gill.
Oh, how about that? Let's see. He was my coach, or he could have been my father. How old was the guy?
He was pretty old.
All right, so he might have been my father's coach.
No, I would say he was not old. He was around my age. But anyway, big shout out to Oves, and thank you for helping me out on the Ocean City Boardwalk. Love going down there. It was a lot of fun. And you have fun in Fenway. And the Eagles have enough defense, Michael, to beat the Cowboys. And I hope the quarterback learned something from that loss last week. I really do.
All right, well, that's the story. Because the quarterback learned from the loss. Can the defense hold up? We'll find out Monday night. And our guy Johnny G from Burger Realty, by the way, just texted in, says, no mistakes Monday night. Last two games at Dallas, won by 20 points because of mistakes in those games. No mistakes, and the Birds win. That's Johnny G's prediction. Sal Powell, enjoy it, man.
I love it. Thanks to Johnny G and the Grinder team at Burger Realty in Ocean City. Thank you very much for supporting the show. And, Michael, we'll talk next week. All
right, pal. Take care. Sal Paolantonio here on a Sal Pal Friday, ESPN senior national correspondent. Follow his Instagram account, Sal Pal ESPN, for Sal Pal's instant reactions to the Eagles this week. He has a whole piece up from the matchup show on the Eagles defense. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Let's read that text off again from Johnny G. He says, we need no mistakes Monday night. Last two games at Dallas, Cowboys won by 20 or more points both games. The game I was at, thanks to you, was 30 points, although that night was a blur. Make no mistakes, and the Birds win 28-27. You are right. Lose this game. And, yeah, I think the loss is a tough pill to swallow because of the schedule coming up. Sal alluded to that. Over on the video stream, Jeff says, we cannot get cute with Dallas at all. If we play smart and execute, we win. I'm wondering how many people out there, I know it's Friday and they play Monday night, but how many people out there believe that this is a winnable game? And I asked that question based on, I don't know if you guys heard what Greeny said today and what he has been saying the last couple of days and what a lot of people are starting to say as this Dallas team. I think a lot of it is they played on Thursday night to start off the season, right? They played Thursday night to start the season off against Tampa, and they were in that game. And then last week, they go on the road, and they win a game. And going on the road in this league is hard. But as Sal kind of broke down, I definitely think that Dallas look, I'm no Dallas hater in terms of I think they're the best team in the East. I have said that for the last couple of years, though. That's been the problem. They have been the most talented team in the East, the NFC East, the last couple of years, period, point blank. And they just haven't been able to get the job done, basically because they've had a terrible – and football Having a bad game plan kills you. Having poor coaching kills you in football. Like, you saw what happens when you have a bad play caller. When you have a bad game plan, when you exploit the wrong things in a game. The Eagles took shots down the field last week. Well, they weren't equipped to do it. They didn't make the adjustments. Here's what Mike Greenberg said on Thursday's edition of Greeny.
I have long been wrong about Dak Prescott, or at minimum, he has convinced me that he is no longer what I used to think he was, which is I thought Dak Prescott was a very good quarterback. He was on the list of good NFL quarterbacks, but was, I thought, a decided step below the truly great quarterbacks in the NFL. And he has convinced me that I'm wrong, that he is truly an elite NFL quarterback. As Bart likes to say, a force multiplier. And those guys elevate everything around them, and I think he has become that in Dallas. And that, more than anything, is the reason I'm on the bandwagon.
The point that he makes is a good one, and I don't know what took him so long, but it's why I have been on board with them as the best team in the East year after year. Dak Prescott's the best quarterback in the division, and it's not close. We weren't sure what we were going to get out of him this season coming off the injury, but it's clear that injury has not slowed him down much. Now, you can make an argument and say, hey, Mike Gill, they didn't score all that many points last week in Los Angeles. And you're right. I mean, they scored 20 points in the game against the Chargers. And the Chargers have a good defense, and you're on the road. Don't get me wrong. And Prescott had a good game. He was efficient, 23 of 27. But what it showed me was they have the weapons that they don't need Prescott to win every game from. The question is their defense what we saw last week? They gave up 17 points in that game. They were very efficient defensively. And that is the one thing that should worry teams, especially in the NFC East. If you want to say, look, this division's down, there's no clear-cut favorite, Dallas's defense, if they have turned it around, right? If they have turned it around defensively, in other words, last year, they got turned around like a turnstile. They were terrible. If they turn things around defensively and are just an average defensive team, they got enough weapons that they don't need Dak Prescott to score. Now, they only scored 20 points last week. Maybe they do need Dak Prescott to throw for 500 yards because they're not going to win a lot of games scoring only 20. But what I saw last week from them on the offensive side of the ball was an added weapon in Tony Pollard. If they can integrate him into the offense. Now, the question is Mike McCarthy the right guy to figure out how to implement Pollard into the offense? They won the game last week with no, obviously, Gallup, him being out, and minimal help from Cooper, who got hurt. But is C.D. Lamb finally ready to kind of break out as that number one type of receiver? He really hasn't been. I mean, he was very good, but he wasn't on the same level as, say, a Justin Jefferson. He hasn't really put himself on that, hey, wow level, but he's starting to make plays. He's starting to show his speed. He's starting to show a lot more versatility, I think, in their offense, and that is something to be concerned about. If you draft this guy Lamb, and last year they had such lousy quarterback play, and you're like, he was a nice piece, but he wasn't a difference maker. If Lamb becomes a difference maker, somebody tweeted this out today. The same season, Dallas traded a first-round pick for Cooper. The Eagles traded a third-round pick for Golden Tate. And people thought, the Eagles got the better player, or, people didn't like Cooper. In other words, Cooper was didn't reach his potential with the Raiders. So when the Cowboys gave a first-round pick for Cooper, you were just kind of like, yawn. And then you give up a third-round pick to go get Golden Tate. In the end, the Cooper deal looks to be the better player. Obviously, Golden Tate's not here anymore. But in the end, Cooper has been giving the Eagles problems every time they have faced him. Hasn't he? They have not figured out a way to stop Amari Cooper. Now, conversely, if I just go off of the Charger game, Herbert had a huge game, but he made mistakes. The 2 interceptions, those mistakes cost them. And the sack that he took, which obviously was not a sack, that killed them. Keenan Allen had 4 catches for 108 yards. Mike Williams had 7 catches for 91 yards. That Mike Williams, man, he has been a beast this year. The thing that I see that the Eagles need to kind of try to follow what now, the Chargers only scored 17 points. So it's not like, hey, the blueprint is I want to do this. But Austin Eckler caught the ball 9 times out of the backfield. The Eagles have not done a good job, right? The Eagles have not done a good job of getting the ball to their running backs out of the backfield. They need to do a better job at that. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, 609-403-0973. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. You can, of course, get the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play. Hey, at 4:40 today, we are going to announce who is going to be the 4th member of our foursome in the LPGA Pro-Am. So if you want to enter, you still have a chance to do it. Right now, go to 973ESPN.com and enter, and we will announce the winning name during Happy Hour Friday today with Pete Thompson at 4:40. Amari Cooper in 7 games against the Eagles. I know how many of these are for Dallas, though. 33 catches, 614 yards, and 4 touchdowns. But I think in the games he's played with Dallas, he's scorched them for even more than those numbers. And those are pretty big numbers. 33 for 614. Getting 18 yards a catch out of him. Not good. Jason Downing's watching the show on YouTube. Says, O-line already banged up. Not giving me much hope for this one, especially in Dallas. Please prove me wrong. Go Birds. Now, the whole playing in Dallas isn't all that big of a deal. The Eagles have won games in Dallas. Dallas doesn't have a big home field advantage. It's not like playing in Seattle or playing in Green Bay or playing in Pittsburgh or, although Pittsburgh lost at home last week. I don't know. Home teams keep losing, right? We talked about it on Wednesday's show with John Clayton. Home teams keep losing. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Follow me on Twitter, at Mike Gill Show. 3 o'clock hour brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union. Choose better banking for great rates on loans, refinancing, and credit cards. Free or low-cost financial products and friendly personal service. Visit jerseyshorefcu.org for more information. Bob Wankel in about 15 minutes from now. Should we start to believe in the Phillies? Is it time to let our guard down? He joins me at 3:40 today. Todd Archer, give us the outside view on the Dallas Cowboys. Happy Hour Friday. 3:30 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Download the app in the Apple Store or Google Play. You still have time to enter to be the fourth member of our foursome in the Pro-Am, which is on Wednesday. I don't know which course we're playing yet. It's either Galloway National or Seaview. So that's an incentive right there to want to play. Those two courses are fantastic, whether it's the Bay or the Pines or Galloway National, which is very challenging. Played there a couple of years ago in the Pro-Am. I wasn't very good, and I normally am not very good. But you know what is good? The Pro. She's usually really good. So even if you're not very good and you just like to come on out and hang out with PT and I in the LPGA Pro, you can enter on our website, 973ESPN.com. Thanks to Sal Pal for jumping on board. Always fun on a Sal Pal Friday. Now, he's going to Foxborough, and I'm going to Fenway. So we'll both be in Boston. Now, Luke Pergandy from Prop Swap, I had talked to him on Thursday, Josh, and he said he was going to give me a list of places to go in Boston, okay?
Okay.
So I didn't hear from him. So I texted him this morning at 8:55, okay?
Very
he told me
specific
when
time.
I talked to him, well, that's what time I texted him, 8:55. It says it right here, 8:55, okay? Now, he said that when I talked to him Thursday, he said, I have a list of spots that you need to check out in Boston. I said, okay, cool. Now, I haven't been to Boston since I was like 12, so I don't really know anything. I don't remember anything. So I texted him at 8:55, said, send a list of Boston spots, exclamation point.
All right.
He responded at 9 o'clock, 5 minutes later, with 18 places and an explanation of each place.
Wow.
In 5 minutes.
Sounds like it should be like a YouTube video.
Right? So I told him, wow, did you have that on file somewhere? And he says, I just typed it up with a wink. So do you think he has, like, in his cell phone, in the notes section, places to go when he goes to Boston? Like, would you do, like, I know, like, when we go to Baltimore, we have, like, our places.
Right.
And then when we go to, like, Max's Tap House, for instance, it's, like, one of our spots. We'll talk to the bartender, and we'll ask them, like, hey, we go and get pizza at Isabella's, but is there someplace else we should go?
Okay.
So my girlfriend, in her pocketbook or whatever, has a list in writing, though, of, like, the places that the bartenders tell us to go. Like, told us to have breakfast at a place called Spoons, which is in Federal Hill. But she has the list, like, on a piece of paper written down. Do you think he takes the notes and puts it in his phone? And then when people, because he travels a lot, you know?
Yes.
So when people say, hey, where should I go if I'm in Boston? Boom, he has the notes section ready to go. He sent that to me, so there's no way he gave me 18 places to go. And, like, for instance.
I was going to say, can you give me a description?
Yeah. Number 1, Giacomo's, North End, best Italian food I've ever had. Long waits, chicken and shrimp in pesto cream sauce, unbelievably fresh calamari. Number 2, Mike's Pastry, North End, for a Florentine-flavored cannoli. Pistachio macaroon is incredible. Do not miss this. That was in capital letters. I like this one. Santarpio's Pizza, best pizza in the city. You'll need to get an Uber to pick it up because they don't deliver. So I had a kid on my team. His last name was Santarpio. I texted his dad today and said, can I have a sausage, pepper, and onion pizza? And will you deliver it to me, please? How about this one? Panza's in the North End, goat cheese, spring roll, cream sauce, tortellini. So, yeah, they were very descriptive, like what I should get at each place.
I think there is a possibility that this list is saved on his phone.
You think so?
I think so more now that I gave you the description. Because it's one thing if you just told me, hey, you know, here's a list of places.
Yeah.
But it's another thing if you start giving, like,
Uber description,
real description, like Josh descriptions. And as the expert of the over description,
I feel like you would send me the whole menu.
I wouldn't give you the whole menu, but like, if you go on 97.3 ESPN.com, my posts about the Atlantic County and Cape May County bars to watch football,
Yeah.
I give you like paragraph descriptions.
Well, you should on that situation.
But I feel like Luke is a little like what I would do.
Right. He sent me a response in a text.
Right. Copy and paste.
And there were 8. He numbered them all. Number 18, Paramount Cafe, cafeteria style, great breakfast. Number 17, State Street Provisions, cool seafood and beer place.
Listen, I think this is completely, Luke compiles a list for every city.
Yeah, because he travels a lot.
Yes,
Now,
he
I'm
does.
wondering out there, if you've been to Boston. Now, I haven't been to Boston. I'm not even counting when I was 12. I don't remember hardly anything.
Mhm.
I remember going, I was supposed to go to Fenway, but they were on strike. It's 1994. I'm 12 years old.
Okay.
Maybe I was older than that. I had to be older than 12. 94.
Well, 94, you were in high school, weren't you?
Yeah, I had to be in high school. So I was like 15 maybe. I remember being there, but I don't remember. I wasn't old enough to drink. I went to a Boston Celtics game at the Old Garden. I saw Charles Barkley was on the Suns. I had a seat where there was a pole basically in my face. It was an obstructed view. I went to a game at the Old Foxborough. We were supposed to go to a Red Sox game, but they were on strike, so I missed that.
Okay.
So I don't remember anything. Like, I wasn't old enough to go anywhere, like, basically, So where should I go if I'm in Boston? Now, I said to Luke, where should I go? He gives me 18 places. I'm wondering, I want to know if any of our listeners have places that mesh with Luke's.
That match up.
Right.
Interesting. It's an interesting question. Now, I will say this about Luke.
Now, I see one from Tim in Millville.
Yeah.
One of the places that Luke gave me, Tim in Millville also gave me.
Okay.
That was, I remember seeing that on his thing.
Got to scroll down or up.
Where was this?
Got to scroll through the list again.
Maybe it's an area. I could have sworn I saw Fennel Hill on Luke's thing, but it's not on here.
Well, I mean, he did send you 18 things.
Yeah,
so.
but I'm going through the list right now. I'm not seeing it. Also, he says if you have time, there's a really good brewery in Massachusetts, Treehouse Brewery. Somebody else also told me about Treehouse Brewery. I wonder if that was Tim tweeting at me the other day. Because I was looking for a place to stay because we're not driving to Boston tonight. We're staying in between. So we're going to stay in like that Connecticut, like New Haven, Mystic, right in that area by Yale.
Right. About like 45 minutes out?
It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours out from Boston. But since I'm leaving after the show tonight, we don't feel like driving 6 hours tonight.
Correct.
Right.
So here's the thing with Luke. That I've hung out with Luke outside this place before.
So have I. He's a good dude.
And one of the things I've learned about Luke is,
oh, you guys were talking at my house.
Right. We got into, because I was asking about, we were just having these random conversations. The topic came up of cities that he's been to.
The guy who gets stuck having the conversation with you at my house, I always feel for.
The conversation about the cities that he likes versus doesn't like traveling to.
Yeah.
So then he goes on and on about vivid description about what city he likes, why he likes, what city he doesn't like, what he doesn't like about the city, where to eat, where not to eat, where to drink, where not to drink. And I'm just sitting there like, I think I didn't talk for 10 minutes.
Well, you're not the biggest traveler.
No, but I was fascinated. I was curious. So he went on. I was like, wow, this guy has like vivid memory and description of
Well, when I go places, I have those memories too of places I like to go when I go to certain places.
Yeah. He doesn't like Indianapolis, by the way.
I've never been. Bob Wankel covers the Phillies. Should we start to believe in the moments the Phillies are giving us? Find out next. All right, big weekend for the Phillies as they get ready to finish up with the Pirates for 3. They beat the Pirates last night, and now they have a 3-game stand with Pittsburgh, 3 with the Braves, 3 with the Marlins. Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad is here. Now, Bob, yesterday, I talked about that throw from Bryce Harper kind of being a moment, right? When a team wins, they go to the playoff, they have a memorable type of ending to their season. You remember things along the way that got them to that moment. The Bryce Harper throw was a moment. Ronald Torreyes just said, hold my beer. Are we starting to knit together some moments for this team that makes you actually feel? I know back when we talked last week, we were like, I just don't see it. But are these moments becoming more regular now that we can start to see it happening?
Listen, I got to stick to my take, right? Like I can't be on the seesaw here and going high and low after every game. I still don't believe that the Phillies are winning the NL East. I just don't. But to be fair, I will say the way that things played out last night, you start to think about it a little bit. You see the Braves, they have to go to San Diego, and granted, the Padres are in the middle of a pretty epic collapse right now, but the Braves actually have to finish a suspended game. They're trailing 5-4, 7-inning game. That's a potential loss for them. And, we'll see what happens out there this weekend. I think that the Phillies, if they even want to entertain having a shot the last week, though, have to sweep the Pirates. Last night was a great start. It's the type of game that you can really build some momentum around. But then again, we also know that this team is not exactly fantastic when it comes to sustaining momentum. So we'll see.
Yeah, I know we talk about, why do you feel it is that at this time of the year, we see so often that teams that are playing for playoff positioning get matched up with these lousy teams and can't seem to find ways to beat them?
It's funny. And then you have teams like the Cardinals that are the complete opposite of that, who all of a sudden can't lose, with everything, with all the pressure. I would say that there's 2 different variables that probably play into this. Number one, you have one team that's playing loose versus another team that's playing tight. And then the other thing is, you a lot of times have kids come up on these teams that are out of contention, and they give them a little bit of a jolt. So the record may be terrible. You might see a 48-win team or a 60-win team this time of year, but they're starting to give some of their younger players, some of their talent, more time, more opportunities. And these teams are a little bit better than you might suspect them to be. The one team I would say that sort of represents that idea is the Colorado Rockies. They've played a lot better lately because some of their younger talent that they're high on are coming up and contributing for them.
The Pirates are, they mentioned on the broadcast last night, much like the Orioles, they have a couple guys that swing the bat. And, this is where you kind of get into these sluggers. They go up 6-0 last night. I guess Girardi, I don't know if that he did not have another option. Like, why does he stick with Nola in that spot? And you got to give Nola credit for as much as he came up small to get him down 6-0. He did keep them in that game.
Yeah, I think he's probably thinking about the way that the bullpen has been taxed. The last couple of nights, they're going to have to probably use the bullpen game again coming up. And at some point, I think as a manager, you see how poorly he's pitching, but you have to say to yourself, like, this is my guy. And if I'm going to get there, if I'm going to get to where I want to go, I need to ride my guys. And that's sort of been his philosophy with Didi Gregorius as well. We all understand that he's not swinging the bat particularly well. He had a big home run last night. But, Joe's basically come out and said, if we're going to make it, he's going to be the guy that does it. And so, I think that was part of the reason that he stuck with Aaron Nola last night.
Yeah, I know we're going to see Nola coming up again. They have that big thing with the Braves. It feels like that it might come down to those 3 games, but you never know. The question I have is you have 2 more bullpen games left. One of them is in that Marlins series, and I go that's looking way ahead. But do we imagine that if it comes down to a bullpen game in that second game, that they might use Wheeler in that spot on short rest, or they go with a second bullpen game in the heat of a pennant race with 9 games left?
Yeah, it's interesting to see how this is going to shape up. Everything that Joe Girardi's done up until last night, even not starting JT Realmuto, you would think like the situation, you're trailing, the urgency that's in play, you'd be all in every single night. But that just has not been what Joe Girardi's done this season. maybe this is why, though. Maybe, these other opportunities where he could have maybe, kept his foot on the gas. Maybe now he says, I've protected these guys. It's go time now with 9 games left. I think that's wishful thinking.
Right.
So we'll see how it goes. I think it's a valid question, something that we're certainly going to have to consider, but I wouldn't be shocked either way, to be honest with you.
Now, with Real Muto, obviously this has been somewhat of a disappointing season, especially coming off the contract. However, he's starting to really turn on right now. I mean, you would almost say that he has carried this team the last couple of nights. I know that Torres' home run was the big jack to get him back in the game, but it feels like he's starting to get hot for his disappointing. I say disappointing. It just has been kind of an season for Real Muto. He's had a lot of big spots that it seemingly he doesn't come up in. But if he helps them in these last week or so, all might be forgotten. But I would imagine the Phillies are looking at that deal they signed already and wondering, no?
Yeah, I think that there's a little bit of concern there from what he's done from an offensive standpoint this season. He really went through a stretch here, in mid-August to the middle of September where he struggled immensely. You do wonder, though. I mean, it's been hinted. Gene Segura, after a game a couple weeks ago, it suggested that the shoulder was an issue, and then they've sort of since admitted that the shoulder is an issue. So, you just never know what a guy's going through. You never know what he's dealing with from an injury standpoint, so you don't want to crush him entirely. But he has gotten hot here lately. He's been a little bit of a disappointment, but like you said, if he finishes strong, I think that he has a chance to kind of change the way that his season's perceived as a whole.
Hey, what about – I know it might sound preposterous to imagine McCutchen being back here next year, but the guy's got 25 home runs. Is there a better option that they have or can find to play left field? Or do you envision if McCutchen helps them get to the playoffs here that you kind of have that sentimental feel of, hey, the guy hit 25 homers. We got to bring him back for one more year.
I think that the Phillies are beyond being sentimental. I really do. I think that they probably, if nothing else, have learned, from the 08, the 07 to 2011 teams that you can't overpay just because you like someone. That being said, if you could get him into a platoon situation, maybe bring him back for $7 or $8 million a year, something that's a little bit more manageable that way. I don't know that that's something that could make some sense. But certainly if he wants to be a $10 million plus per year guy, which I don't know that anyone will give him that, but I don't see the Phillies going that route for sure.
All right, Bob Wankel crossing broad. You got 3 with Pittsburgh, Gibson tonight, Suarez tomorrow, bullpen game Sunday. I would imagine that's what, Medina going to get that game?
I mean, he didn't do anything the other night to really say that he shouldn't, so I would imagine he would be the guy, yes.
So after that, you've got that Braves series that sets up with Wheeler, Nola, Gibson. I mean, against Anderson, Morton, Fried, I guess you couldn't ask for either team to go into that series any better. Like, that's it. Those 3 right there. Let's see who wins this bad boy.
Yeah, and as a guy that follows a team, wants to see good baseball, I hope that series means something. I hope that the Phillies take care of what they need to take care of. And if they can get it to within 1 game going down to Atlanta next week, and hey, 2 out of 3 gets you tied, even up, going down to Miami, which, hey, everybody will hold their breath in that series. And then the Braves will host the Mets. And the Mets are the Mets, but there's still some talent there, and they can sneak you on any given night. So it's very interesting. But I think that the key really is that no matter what happens, whether it's 2 out of 3 this weekend, sweeping the Pirates, whatever the Braves do, the Phillies have to get through Sunday 1 game back or better. If they're 2 out or more, it's going to be really tough.
Now, the Braves play a doubleheader today, too. I mean, conceivably, if they were to lose both and you won, you would have a half game between the 2 teams at worst, possibly, if they lose the next couple games. Them playing 2 today really is interesting with you playing the Pirates. This thing's going to get interesting. I feel like things are getting interesting, man.
Yeah, it's a massive day. I mean, you could be anywhere between, I guess the way it shakes out, anywhere between 3.5 and
right.
half game out by the end of today. So this is a massive day for the Phillies.
9 left to go. It all starts this weekend. They played the Pirates last night, so it was a 4-gamer, but 3 games set still to go with Pittsburgh. The Braves are out in San Diego, and then the 2 teams will play to close out. No, the 6-game road trip, too. That factors in as well. The Phillies have to go play 6 on the road after this. So it shows you how imperative this series is. 6 in Atlanta, 6 in Miami. All right, Bob Wankel, you're not feeling it. Neither am I.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong.
Have a good weekend, man.
Hey, man.
Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad, joining us here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. This hour brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union. Choose better banking for great rates on loans, refinancing, credit cards, free or low-cost financial products, and friendly personal service. Visit Jersey Shore Federal Credit, JerseyShoreFCU.org for more information. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Don't forget, download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play, and you can message us through the mobile app. You can also text us at 609-403-0973. Mike, Zeke, Dak, and Cooper have been together for like 3 years and have won nothing. Dak's been in the league 6 years and have won as one playoff victory. They're average at best. I'm not disagreeing with the fact that the group as a whole is average. Me saying that they're the best, most talented team in the East isn't suggesting it's a Super Bowl roster. But there's no question that Dak Prescott is the best quarterback in the NFC East, period, point blank. I think that Zeke, by the way, they've been together for 3 years and won nothing. Dak Prescott got hurt last year. Now you're making me defend the Cowboys. You conveniently left out that Dak got hurt last year, and the year before they got Cooper midway through the year. He didn't even play the whole year there. I mean, come on. Football at 4 is next. Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at the Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. Andrew DiCecco's here on a Friday edition of Football at 4. He's powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and InsideTheBirds.com is where you can read Andrew's coverage of the Eagles and the Cowboys. And he joins me right now here on the Sports Bash Happy Hour Friday edition. Andrew, what's going on, man?
Mike, how you doing, my friend?
Always good, man. I love the Friday opportunity to get a chance to break it down with you as you do it so well. And let's talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening with this Eagles team. Happening today, Andrew, the news coming out is Jordan Mailata knee injury. Looks like he is in doubt to play on Monday night. And let's get right there. What kind of blow would that be if both Mailata and we know Brandon Brooks is already out? It has shades of 2020 written all over it.
Well, obviously, you never want to lose your left tackle, but if there were an opportunity or an opportune game to do so, you would like it to be against a team like a decimated defensive line like the Dallas Cowboys. They're also decimated on the defensive line. So, I mean, they just activated Randy Gregory from the COVID list yesterday. Bradley Anae, one of their other pass rushers, was just placed on the COVID list today. They have Terrell Basham, who's been a 27-year-old journeyman. This is his third team. He was a third-round pick of the New York Jets. Didn't really do much there. And Doris Armstrong, he's going to be out this week as well. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of inexperience on their line. So, I mean, if you're without Jordan Mailata, is it something that you would like? Obviously not, and hopefully it's not long term. But Andre Dillard should be able to acquit himself relatively well against something of a mash unit for the Dallas Cowboys on that front.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are not very high on Andre Dillard, but this is an opportunity for Dillard, Andrew, that if he doesn't want to be here or doesn't want to be a backup, I mean, he's not Ben Simmons saying he doesn't want to be here, but if he doesn't want to be a backup, this is his opportunity to show teams around the league that he can help them out, because there's a lot of teams in this league that could use left tackle help.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's how he needs to approach this situation. First and foremost, you need to represent yourself well for your teammates with the Philadelphia Eagles, but you also need to look at it as an audition opportunity, because obviously he's not going to figure in their long-term plans as the left tackle. Obviously, they've committed to Jordan Mailata, and he's going to be their mainstay at left tackle. But this is another opportunity, Mike. You talk about the preseason being an opportunity for some of these guys. Well, now is a good audition for Andre Dillard to prove that he can play at this level, play competently at this level, and dominate the players that he should be dominating against, and hopefully carry that over and parlay that into a starting job elsewhere.
All right. Obviously, not having Mailata is going to be a big factor if he, in fact, cannot play. There was a tweet from Mike Garafolo earlier that suggested that he would not be ready to play in the game, but he has an MCL, which means it's not a long-term thing. But you said on Tuesday you thought Nate Herbig should be the guy. It looks like that could be a longer-term thing, and they're going to go with Landon Dickerson in that spot there. But you know, the big thing when they got Dickerson was that they wanted this guy to provide depth all across the offensive line, right? So how about him fitting in at right guard as opposed to one of the other positions? He was really drafted, I guess, to be a center or maybe even a left guard, but right guard is kind of like the long shot spot that we thought we'd see him. So you still think Herbig would be the better option there, or are you feeling more comfortable with Dickerson now that he's getting the full week?
Well, I always thought that they were going to go with Landon Dickerson. I just thought that it made the most sense logically to go with a Nate Herbig, given the continuity and that he's done it before, and you don't want to necessarily throw Landon Dickerson in there and have him forged by fire, especially 9 months off the ACL. But, I mean, in his 33 snaps, Mike, he flashed some of that athleticism that warranted that second-round selection, but he also, like I said, as to be expected, struggled from a power and leverage standpoint. But, I mean, playing right guard, out of all the positions on the offensive line, right guard is the one that you can sort of hide the player a little bit, and I think that they'll be able to do so. Also, his matchup this week projects pretty favorably. He's going against a third-round pick from UCLA named Osa Digizua, who is 6'2", 280 pounds, can really struggles at the point of attack, can get washed down against the run. He's very quick off the ball, but Landon Dickerson outweighs him, and he's stronger than he is and should be able to have his way in that matchup. And I think that he's going to be able to sort of lay on him and wear him down throughout the game. Obviously, Odigizua is not somebody that the Cowboys would ideally like to start. I think he'd be a good number 3 defensive tackle in a rotation. He does play with great effort and has a great motor, but I don't know that he's going to be able to play the full gamut of snaps. He's already played 58% of Dallas' snaps this season, so we'll see how that goes. But as far as Landon Dickerson goes, I think that's a good first matchup.
Yeah, and I want you to kind of expand on Nick Sirianni was asked the other day about the fact that his offensive line really outweighs the Dallas defensive line by like 50 pounds a guy here. So, Andrew, would you, if you had a chance to sit down with Nick Sirianni, would you suggest that running the ball this week is the way to go?
Absolutely, especially in the early goings where you're trying to feel each other out and you want to get Jalen Hurts settled into the game. You want to get the team settled in and start to control that clock and just start to move bodies, because what starts out in the first quarter, you start running the ball and you gradually start to keep that pace throughout the game. It starts to wear on these undersized defensive linemen. Now all of a sudden out of the in the second half, you're able to open up the playbook and really win, because like Chip Kelly used to always say, big people beat up little people. I believe that was his saying, and that's going to ring true. And I think that if they stick with the running game early on, even if you only get 3 yards, 4 yards a pop, stay with it, because ultimately at the end of the game, these guys are going to wear down, and then you're going to have the advantage.
Yeah, so obviously the Eagles, how would you describe their run game so far this year? Kind of nondescript.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's a lot more of a balanced approach this year, which you'd like to see. But like you said, it has been pretty nondescript. I do like that they just continuously go out. They're using Miles Sanders a little bit more than the previous regime did, because Miles has shown the burst and the ability to be, to move ahead and give positive yards. I like what they have in Kenny Gainwell as a good 1-2 tandem there. And I think that he's going to be heavily involved in the game plan this week as a pass-catching running back change-up option, and then, of course, in the red zone as he has been. So I think that they have a really good 1-2 tandem there, and I think they're going to continue to utilize that. And eventually, Mike, one of these weeks, the running game is really going to pop for a couple big games. So they just need to stay with it and be consistent.
All right, talking with Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4 here. I want to talk a little bit about the lack of usage of the tight end so far. And, obviously, you got Goddard, you've got Ertz. Those are two guys that are kind of old faithful feels. If you're designing the game plan here, are you going with your dependable tight ends to try to, put points on the board, or are you kind of following the game plan of the first 2 weeks of utilizing the wide receivers?
Well, I mean, I thought that last week was certainly wide receiver heavy. I think that you need to get Jalen Hurts comfortable and get some throws over the middle to have him sort of tap into that aspect of his game. There's going to be opportunities there, Mike. The Dallas linebackers are not very proficient in coverage. Dallas Goedert has a big opportunity to stretch them vertically, and I think if Zach Ertz is there as well, you can really attack the seams there and the middle of the field and exploit that while also utilizing the weapons that you have. And I think Devontae Smith is going to have a big game as well, compile a lot of targets, and much like the stat line that he had in week 1. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of opportunity here to attack this the linebacker area as a whole, and I think they need to do so. And it's going to be a big game for Jalen Hurts to sort of establish that part of his game, because in the summer at training camp, Dallas Goedert and him had a seamless connection, and you want to see him tap back into that, because he's proven that he can do it. Now it's just kind of correlate and translate onto the playing field, because he's shown that he can do it.
There's so much around this game and matchup-wise that are kind of intriguing here, and you flip things over to the Eagle defense, and you're losing Brandon Graham, and obviously he's a big heart and soul kind of guy of this team, and the pass rush. How is this pass rush match up against the Dallas offensive line? Because I think we kind of think of this Dallas offensive line as one of the better ones in the league. They had their own injury problems, and they've also had the suspension here. So what kind of Dallas offensive line are we seeing Monday night?
I think it's a beatable line for sure. And I think particularly on the interior, this, again, we've seen talk about this every week, but Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave are going to have a chance to establish the line of scrimmage early. I think they're going to be able to collapse the pocket. They're going to have an opportunity with Connor Williams and Zach Martin and Biadasz, the center, to really get some penetration there. And I think a player who I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to is Derek Barnett, who I believe is going to be aligned over right tackle Terrence Steele. So I think that there's going to be an opportunity there. I want to see how Barnett responds to an elevated sense of responsibility, not just taking on an elevated role, but also he had that egregious penalty last week, and I want to see how he responds to that, because now, like it or not, he really is going to assume that he's really fronting this group because he plays the most snaps. He's going to continue to play the most snaps out of these guys. He's in a contract year, and he was a former first-round pick. So now you have an opportunity here to really put your stamp on this position. Everyone talks about Josh Sweat, and rightfully so. He's got the 3-year extension, and the team is committed to him, obviously. But if you're Derek Barnett, like we talked about Andre Dillard, this is an audition opportunity for you to really establish yourself and make the most of this opportunity.
All right. I think another thing, too, is we've not seen the big play, right? The Jonathan Gannon defense has not given up the big play, Andrew. What are some of the reasons behind that? And I would imagine they're going to be tested this week. Gallup's out, though, and we don't know the status on Cooper.
Yeah, exactly. I think Cooper is, as I understand, is going to be good to go this week. But I think that Jonathan Gannon's done a good job of protecting his corners, unlike the Jim Schwartz did. And they've also helped, again, it's only been 2 games, but they also helped from a positive game script in week 1, where they're able to sort of tee off on Matt Ryan. They were one-dimensional, so it makes it very predictable as far as what they're going to do. This is going to be a one of those games, Mike, where I think it's going to be an offensive sort of a shootout. And much like last week I mentioned on your show that I thought it was more like a boxing match, and it sort of unfolded that way. But I think this week is going to be an offensive shootout. And I think one of the matchups to watch that I think can ultimately determine the outcome of this game is cornerback Steve Nelson on CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb has garnered 24 targets this season, 185 yards and a touchdown. And I think that he's going to have a favorable matchup going against the aggressive Steve Nelson, who has really stood out as a tackler on the perimeter, very physical, nosy player, but he's not extremely fluid and he doesn't have the long speed. So I think if Dak Prescott sees that matchup on the outside, he's going to strike fast.
That's a good breakdown by Andrew here, as obviously talk a little bit about Dak Prescott and what you've seen from him. Any ill effects from the injury or the arm problems that he has had in the 2 games that we've seen him? Because last week, they only scored 20 points. He was efficient, but didn't have a huge yardage game, which is one of the first non-huge yardage games we've seen from him in my God, almost since he didn't play half the year last year. It seems like almost 2 years.
Yeah, and to answer your question, I mean, you have to love what you see from Dak Prescott. I mean, he went toe-to-toe with Tom Brady in the season opener. Looked like you didn't really see any ill effects of the injury. He's just a very consistent quarterback. Obviously, last week was somewhat of an outlier. Every quarterback sort of has one of those clunkers every now and then, but he seems to always give his team, his offense at least, a fighting chance in these games. And because he's such a rhythmic, consistent passer who facilitates the ball to his array of pass targets, and he picks and chooses his spots in which he's going to run. I just think he's a very smart, accurate, rhythmic passer, and the offense runs through him. So, I mean, yeah. I think you have to like what you see from him if you're a Dallas fan, and if you're an Eagles fan, you have to figure out how to stop it.
Yeah, and the whole dynamic of what Dak Prescott has added to their offense just be returning. You see what he means. I mean, they were terrible at quarterback last year. As soon as he went out, their offense was a disaster. How much he means. How do you think they'll end up using Pollard now? Do you anticipate him being incorporated more?
I do. I mean, and when you look at the tandem that him and Ezekiel Elliott combined, they combined for 198 yards on the ground last week. A lot of people are quick to write Ezekiel Elliott off. I wouldn't be necessarily so quick to do that. Yes, this season he sort of looked like his yards looked more like a plodding running back, and Pollard looks more like the explosive, springy, complimentary running back. Zeke Elliott has a lot of mileage on him, and I think the Cowboys, the way that he was utilized earlier in his career, the offense really ran through him versus it's going through Dak Prescott. And I think you're starting to see those effects. But now that they're shouldering, they're giving more of a responsibility to Tony Pollard, who is a fantastic pass-catching running back and adds a little bit of juice into the backfield. And I think that you're going to find the Cowboys are going to find ways to get him the ball in space. I think he's going to be a consistent presence in their offense, and it's going to be more of a balanced approach. And they're going to have to be able to handle the downhill running of Zeke Elliott and the perimeter running of Tony Pollard. So we'll see how that shakes out.
Yeah, really good breakdown. Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4 as the Eagles and the Cowboys. In your mind, it's week 3, but how important of a game is this in the NFC East, especially considering the Eagles' schedule coming up, Andrew, which, if you haven't noticed, is pretty difficult. Kansas City at Carolina, Tampa Bay at Vegas. Really, they don't catch a really break until October 31st when they're at Detroit. So if they don't get this one, I mean, it could be a long road ahead.
That's a fair assessment, Mike, but you never want to make a week 3 game out to be a must win, right? Even in this, especially in this division, when you have a Taylor Heineke-led Washington football team, the Giants are a mess and sort of spiraling out of control. And Dallas they're just decimated on defense, and they don't have their deep threat Michael Gallup. Like every team you can make a case for them sort of sputtering at certain points this season. I think it's going to be a closely contested division all the way through. These teams that you're going to meet on Monday night, the Eagles and the Cowboys, I think that they're pretty evenly matched right now. And like I said, it's hard to sort of label a week 3 game as a must win. So I don't make too much out of it. It doesn't necessarily feel like Dallas week this week, does it?
I think the whole Ben Simmons thing kind of got in the way, right? Maybe the Phillies,
just a little bit,
right? Maybe the Phillies being in the kind of getting back. You're right, though. Like Ben Simmons, this whole Ben Simmons thing kind of just came out of not nowhere. I mean, we knew he didn't want to be here, but him digging his feet in the sand and then Doc Rivers talking. I mean, that took up 2 days of conversation. And then the day that Ben Simmons kind of went away, Bryce Harper throws a guy out at the plate. They get a 3-run homer last night. So you're right. It doesn't feel like it's Dallas week. I don't know why that is, because both teams are 1-1, and it's a big game on Monday night. If the Eagles can win, they go to 2-1. They have possible first place in the division. So I look at this game as pretty important. It sounds like you're downplaying a little bit, but man, I mean, the injuries are starting to pile up already, and that's what has me concerned.
Yeah, and I guess the one thing I would say is the injuries are piling up for Dallas as well, and I don't consider the Washington football team or the Giants viable contenders for this division, given how the first couple of weeks have shaken out, and obviously Ryan Fitzpatrick out for the foreseeable future. So I think that threw a wrench in everything. So I wouldn't press the panic button just yet and sort of strap in, because it's a long season and a lot of things can unfold in a myriad of ways. So we're going to have to see how it goes. But I like the direction of the Eagles offense. I should say I'm optimistic about the future of the Eagles offense. And I think that they have the right recipe in Jonathan Gannon to keep them in it throughout the rest of the season.
Right. Your thoughts on the game Monday night? How's this thing going to shake out on Monday?
Well, it's very tough, Mike, to sort of their resolve is going to be tested. They're coming off a deflating home loss. They're traveling to AT&T Stadium for a primetime tilt with a divisional rival. I do expect the Eagles to respond favorably from the adversity last week. I mean, not to mention that they lost 2 prominent leaders in Brandon Graham and Brandon Brooks. I think that they're going to return to something of week 1 form, but I do think that an experienced Cowboys offensive unit is going to make a play or two late in the contest to sort of propel them to a narrow victory. However, I have the Cowboys winning 27-24.
27-24. Dallas from Andrew DiCecco. Check out the Inside the Birds podcast and InsideTheBirds.com for Andrew's coverage of the game this week. Of course, it is on Monday night, and it is right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Andrew, enjoy the weekend, pal.
Thanks, Mike. You too. Talk to you next week.
Yeah, man. Andrew DiCecco's back on Tuesday. He'll be reacting to the Eagles game the day after it happens right here on the Sports Bash. We want you to be a part of it. Don't forget, 20 minutes from now, we're going to tell you who the winner. Pete Thompson's got that winning name. He's been getting all these entries, and he'll tell us who that winning name is during Happy Hour Friday at 4:40 today on the Sports Bash. Football at 4 is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com and experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at the Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Pete Thompson in 20 minutes, but when we return, it's the outside view. We're going to Dallas as Todd Archer joins us from ESPN.com's NFL Nation, covers the Cowboys. He'll give us a little insight on this Cowboys team. How about those Cowboys? We'll find out more about them coming up next on the Sports Bash. Sports Bash is live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Don't forget, we'll be announcing the winner. Pete Thompson has that winning name coming up at 4:40 during Happy Hour Friday. Listen to see if we call your name to be the fourth member of our group for the LPGA Pro-Am. We're playing on Wednesday. We'll have the information on where for the winner on Monday. But we got to find out who that winner is coming up for Happy Hour Friday. Pete Thompson has that winning name. He'll tell us who it is coming up at 4:40 today on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. This hour brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. Today's Outside View, we go to Dallas, where the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles renew their rivalry. A pair of 1-1 teams, the Eagles, and they'll be in Dallas on Monday night, and you can hear that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Todd Archer covers the Cowboys, and he joins us now with a little insight on America's team. Todd, welcome back to the show. How you been?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
We're doing good. I mean, obviously, I don't know about out there. Here, it's always Dallas week. It's like a whole week. But Ben Simmons kind of took over for a couple of days, and it kind of pushed Dallas week off the map for us here. But how big of a game is a Week 3 NFC East matchup feel out there?
You know, I think there's no T-shirts rolling around down here. So I guess that's one of the biggest differences. But, you know, obviously it's important. But I don't think that – I think Eagles fans hate the Cowboys more than Cowboys fans maybe hate the Eagles, or maybe you guys are just more boisterous about it than Cowboys fans. But there's no question it's an important game for both teams, considering how last year went for both teams, the state of the division. Who knows who's any good at this point? So if you can win early, then you can kind of build up some goodwill as you get later in the season when we know it's going to come down to those last couple of games.
Yeah, I know the Eagles don't have another division game until late November. That's why it feels a little weird to have this one here and then nobody. I think they play the Giants November the 28th, so it's the only NFC East matchup they'll have until late November. Injury-wise, the Eagles are already banged up. Brandon Graham out, Brandon Brooks out. We found out today Jordan Mailata might not play in the game. How is the injury status so far for Dallas?
Yeah, I guess the good news for the Cowboys is Amari Cooper was a full participant today. He had a rib injury, hurt it in the opener, aggravated it last week. He says he's good to go. We'll wear a little extra protection for his side there. And, you know, for the Eagles, I mean, Amari has more catches and yards against the Eagles than any other team in the league. In three of the 6 games he's played against the Eagles while with the Cowboys, he's got a 100-yard game. So having him obviously is a big bonus. And then, but on the defensive line, the Cowboys just lost their third guy of the week. And look, none of them are as big as Brandon Graham, obviously, for the Eagles. But Bradley and I is on the COVID list. Dorrance Armstrong won't play because of an ankle sprain. And defensive tackle Carlos Watkins, he's out because of a knee sprain. So you're looking at guys that are either going to be called up from the practice squad or have yet to play this season, like their third-round pick, Chauncey Golston. So the Cowboys up front, they're going to be relying again a lot on Micah Parsons, it looks like, to play some defensive end and not so much at linebacker.
Yeah, Cooper, by the way, 6 games against the Eagles in Dallas, 548 yards, 91 yards a game. That trade has worked out pretty well for Dallas, at least in this game. You mentioned Micah Parsons. Yes, they used him as a pass rusher last week. I was going to say, is that the anticipation again, is that he will be lining up all up and down the defensive line?
That's what it seems like, you know, on either side. And if Mailata's out this week, that obviously helps the Cowboys because he's a good tackle. The guy that Parsons tore up last week, Storm Norton, not familiar with his work before seeing him last week. Obviously, Lane Johnson's a lot better player than he is. So I don't know how much success that he would have every snap against Johnson, but they're going to move him around, and they have to just because of numbers, right? I mean, they just don't have, you know, DeMarcus Lawrence he's out. He broke his foot in practice last week. So, you know, in some ways, Micah Parsons is their best pass rusher already, although Randy Gregory will be back after missing last week's game on the COVID list. He says he's feeling much better after 2 days of practice. That's a plus. But, you know, this isn't exactly the doomsday defense the Cowboys are rolling through, or even the DeMarcus Ware-led defensive line group, pass rusher group when he was at his best.
Todd Archer covers the Cowboys for ESPN. I'd like to hear from you how you anticipate the Pollard-Elliott split kind of going in this game, but in the foreseeable future as well. Is this something that is worth keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, you got to keep an eye on it, A, because it's the Cowboys, and B, it's Elliott and that $90 million contract. So it's going to be talked about, but I don't think you're seeing any kind of 50-50 split coming up. This isn't going to be like for Eagles fans to remember like the Julius Jones-Marion Barber split or even the Marion Barber-Felix Jones split. I think it's still going to be Zeke getting predominantly the large amount of the carries and Pollard fitting in. The Cowboys are not displeased at all with what Elliott's done so far this season, and they're obviously not displeased with Pollard. And there are multiple things they can do with Pollard that allows both of them to be on the field at the same time. So that's a bonus. But I still think at the end of the day, when the season's over, Zeke will have, 275 to 300 carries, and Pollard will be in that 100 to 125 range if all goes well and they don't have to throw it every week like they did a year ago before Dak went down. So I would still say for the fantasy players out there, Zeke is still RB1.
Hey, the defense last week only gave up 17 points, Todd, and obviously they had big problems on defense last year. Does it feel like they've significantly fixed those problems early on?
Significantly is probably too strong because there were 2 touchdowns that were called back, and they had a pick in the end zone. So the Chargers did a lot of they hurt themselves more, I think, than the Cowboys laid it on into the Chargers. And then you can look at the opener, and they got 4 takeaways. One was a Hail Mary at the end of the half. But again, one was in the red zone. Tampa had driven the field, and they got the ball away. All good things. And that's what they didn't do last year on defense, really, for the first 8, 9, 10 games where they were just abysmal. They've been better lately at taking the ball away, and that's continued here for the first 2 games. They lead the league in takeaways. So if that's what they can continue, great. But this hasn't been a version of a defense that's just stoning people. Even if you see 17 points last week to the Chargers, there weren't a lot of possessions in that game of the way the drives work out. And again, the Chargers played a big part in the reason why they only scored 17. So, but it is better. And I don't mean that just because it couldn't be any worse. It is better, and Parsons brings something. Van Der Esch is playing pretty well. Trayvon Diggs is making a big jump in his second year. So there's more ability there, and they're gaining some belief, but there's still a ways it's got to go.
Yeah, I know the defense was a disaster last year, but that didn't help that the quarterback was out. You had to keep putting them out in the field. I'm sure that is a big reason why the defense was even worse than it could have been. They obviously how much attention did the way McCarthy worked the play clock late in that game get last week? Because that game, realistically, they could have lost that game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or whatever he did with the play clock.
Exactly. It was the strangest thing that I've seen in quite some time. I had to go back to a game when Jason Garrett was a coach in 2012 against Baltimore where they let 30-some-odd seconds go off the clock and settled for a 50-plus yard field goal by Dan Bailey, and they missed. Ended up losing the Ravens by 2 points. This one, Zerline bailed them out. There's no way that you say we're good with a 56-yard field goal when there's 25 seconds left after a Pollard run. He said the clock went out. He couldn't see the clock. The one he had been looking at all game. Kellen Moore was blocked by a camera truck, so he couldn't see it. And then you see it when you watch the television copy, Kellen Moore is sprinting down the sideline to call that timeout. So it wasn't like they were just like, okay, we're good. Let's just leave it here. Definitely something that raised some eyebrows when you think of game management. And when McCarthy's not calling the offensive plays, he obviously doesn't call the defense or special teams either. Game management has to be his strong suit. And that, they, as I said, I think they got bailed out by Zerline making a 56-yard field goal.
Yeah, and then the penalty too. I mean, obviously that was that in the grass call. That really, I don't know. I mean, that kind of changed, that impacted the game big time. No.
Well, you're talking about Parsons' sack on Herbert.
Yeah, for a 25-yard loss.
Well, it was either going to be a sack or an intentional grounding because the ball never got back to the line of scrimmage. So either way, the Chargers were going to be back into that same position. At least they should have been. I don't know how Tony Carney called it forward progress was stopped when the guy was backing up the entire way. So that was also a strange call, but when you have a Tony Carney ref game, there seems to be some strange calls.
The Eagles and the Cowboys Monday night right here on 97.3 ESPN. There's a couple of the particulars on Dallas, and, of course, you can hear that game with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick here on 97.3 ESPN. Todd Archer, ESPN.com, covering the matchup as always. We appreciate your time, Todd. Thanks so much.
Yep, you got it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good stuff from Todd Archer there. You heard the injuries. I think the most telling stuff is on that defensive front, which he kind of brought up. They are still very limited on the defensive front, but that means Micah Parsons will be a part of the defensive line again, it looks like, this week. And if I'm them, I'm probably lining him up against Andre Dillard. Hey, Dillard, welcome back. Try to block Micah Parsons. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN Outside View, brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan, the all-new Matt Blatt Nissan, now open Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot, online, mattblattnissan.com. When we come back, Pete Thompson has the winning name. Who's going to play in the Force in the LPGA Pro-Am with us? Stick around for that. A little hat tip to Brandon Graham in that. Stick around. You'll hear what I mean. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. All right, here we go. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. It is Happy Hour Friday with the PT, and Pete Thompson as our winning name. We'll get that in just a second, but Happy Hour Friday here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. Nope, it's not brought to you by anybody because they still can't get PT. You were excited, Pete Thompson.
You saw my face change. I was like, oh, really? Somebody came in.
You were excited there for a second. How about poor Pete Thompson? Nobody wants to sponsor the PT out there. I find that hard to believe.
It's unbelievable, right?
I find it hard to believe. All right, Pete Thompson.
Sam Hill is going on here. Isn't that what Hank
Right,
Stram
exactly.
said?
What is going on here? All right, Happy Hour Friday with the PT. We've been talking about it all week. Somebody out there is going to play in this year's ShopRite LPGA Pro-Am with us on Wednesday. Now, we don't know the course information yet. We're going to get that information on Monday. So we'll get all that out to our winner. But we do have the winning name. Now, Pete Thompson has all the entries. You have all the entries. And you, Pete Thompson, we've been telling people all week during Happy Hour Friday,
that is
Pete
correct.
Thompson will tell us your promo has been running all week saying, hi, it's Pete Thompson.
Hey, it's Pete Thompson. I'll take hotcakes, and sausage. Oh, wait, no, wrong promo.
So Pete Thompson is going to tell us who the fourth member of our group is. Peter?
And by the way, just to delay this a little longer, because that's what we do in radio, we do know the possible courses. It could be the Seaview Bay course. It could be the Seaview Pines course. Or it could be that gem of a course, Galloway National, the ultra-private, you can never get on course that's right up the road from Seaview. So it'll be one of those three tracks for sure. So, all right, yes, you have tasked me with picking the winning name. So hang on, let me open up my XLS spreadsheet. We had a lot of names, Gill. I mean, a lot of names.
I was.
You think this is a record number? 253 names.
It's very high. Yes. We only did it for a week too. We typically do it for multiple weeks.
That's true. All right. So the fourth member of the group, you got to give me a number, Mike, between 1 and 253.
All right. Well, I teased on the other side of the break. I'm going a little hat tip for Brandon Graham. So I'll go 5-5 for BG.
All right. So if that's the case, 55. Now hang on here. All right. It looks like Joe from Margate. From Margate is our fourth for the ShopRite LPGA Classic, and he hopefully is a good golfer and can
well, he's got to be better than me, right? All right, congratulations, number 55, Brandon Graham. Joe, you are the 55th entry, and all right, that's who we got, Joe from Margate. So the particulars will our promotions team will reach out to him. We got his phone number, right? It's on that list over there, I'm imagining.
Yep, it's on there. Yep.
All right. Well, you don't have to announce it over the air for the poor guy.
No, that's fine.
Here's the winning number. Call the guy and tell him congratulations from Pete Thompson.
Hey, it's Pete Thompson.
All right, Peter. So we'll play golf on Wednesday. Me, you, Joe, and we don't know who our pro is yet.
You know, that's interesting as well, because as you know, a little behind the scenes, we had played the last time we did this, which is plus 2 years ago now. We played with that Shasta Avery Hart, and you and I always call Shastas the daddy sodas, the elbow benders, right? Happy hour, that all ties in. And so we had kind of inquired a little bit about, we like that girl. Can we play with her again? And there were some wheels in motion to make that happen. And then all of a sudden I got an email today, in fact, from the ShopRite LPGA staff that said, hey, we were all set to have you play with Shasta, but she's withdrawn.
Oh, wow.
So now we don't know who we're going to get. So it's a total surprise. So it'll be fun.
Well, we'll have our team tell, we don't have the information on the course or who we're playing with. We'll get all that information to the winner on Monday. I think that information will come out. So hold tight, Joe, if you're listening out there. We'll somebody in the we don't really have a promotions department anymore.
Quasi, but yeah, somebody will reach
out to you. All right, Joe. It's
probably his name is Pete Thompson.
You might get a call from Pete Thompson. Well, I don't even really work here. That's what makes this so difficult.
You entrusted me with the XLS spreadsheet, so that means that I must have some responsibility.
There you go. All right.
Too funny.
So it's Dallas week, Pete Thompson.
Does
it feel like Dallas week to you?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I'm embracing the fact that Nick Sirianni is trying to pump enthusiasm into.
Yeah, what do you think
Dallas
about
game.
all that? He wears the T-shirt that says "Beat Dallas." Now, some people thought that's a little hokey.
Totally fine with it. You know what I mean? Totally fine with it. Listen, I thought it was hokey when he was playing rock, paper, scissors. And if it gets the team moving in the same direction, if that's what works in today's NFL, I'm totally okay with it. I really don't think wearing a T-shirt that says it's not like it's a secret. It's not like it's a surprise to anybody in Cowboys Nation or anybody in that locker room how passionate the Eagles and the Eagle fans are. I did think it was interesting. And who was that you had on earlier that said that Jalen Hurts had originally sort of given a real vanilla, bland answer?
That was yesterday with Rob Motti.
Yeah, that was great when you had Rob Motti on. And then he sort of said, like, maybe the PR staff got with him and said, let's reframe that answer a little bit. No, we don't want it to come off like you don't care.
Well, it's funny because that interview was for Faith on the Field.
Mm-hmm.
So I said maybe he knew his audience was a little different.
Right. You can't be talking about, going to war and blood curling, hits and all those things when you're doing faith and God and all those things. I get that. Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, look, to me, what happened, Peter, is the whole Ben Simmons thing kind of like pushed the Sixers kind of to the side a little. I mean, right? I mean, It felt like the whole Ben Simmons thing kind of got in the way. Not that it was a big story, but it felt like it kind of pushed the Sixers to the side a little bit.
Well, and not for nothing, but it's even little things too, like the Sixers are going to have a female play-by-play voice. Just little stories that come out that knock or the Phillies, whether they won a game or lost a game. I'm still paying attention casually to that. So I mean, I'm not locked in, but normally when you get to Dallas week, it is Eagles Dallas,
yes.
And that is all you're talking about.
That's right.
And there's been so much going on that it's hard to just stay lock, stock, and barrel on one thing.
It is, and that's what, Happy Hour Friday, we like to bounce around sometimes, but the Eagles typically dominate on a Friday. But the game being on Monday, I think oddly enough, the game being on Monday actually, I think, is taken away a little bit until Monday gets here, and we'll probably be all jacked up. But that being said, and I'll get your pick for Eagles because you're not on until Tuesday, so you'll be back on Tuesday with Thompson. There's so much more going on, including this Ben Simmons thing.
Yeah,
so
unbelievable.
He puts his toes, he locks his heels in the sand. Then the Sixers put Doc Rivers out on the media tour, and now here we are. So he says, we want him back. I was misrepresented. No, you weren't. But now they report on Tuesday with Thompson. The Sixers report on Tuesday. How's this going to go down? Because Ben Simmons isn't going to show up.
Yeah, he's not going to show up. And I think that what the Sixers are doing is genius. And we talked about, I think the words that I used, if I'm remembering my exact verbiage, was fine his ass, sit his ass, let him rot. I think that's what we talked about on Tuesday. And I'm not 100% sure.
Because on Tuesday, Peter, when you were on, we only heard from the Simmons side that he never intended to play again. Wednesday, we haven't talked since then.
Yep.
The Sixers sent Doc Rivers out there.
Which is brilliant. You know what I mean? Like, listen, you're a manager at Town Square and at the radio station. You understand that when you have a disgruntled employee or you have an employee that has a grievance, there's certain procedures and steps you have to follow. And in this case, the Sixers, I think, are doing everything right. Number one, they do control his rights for 4 years, not one, like we talked about. Number two, I believe that when they say, hey, we want him back, then in sort of like, God, if this went to like some sort of arbitration or went to some sort of third party, like negotiations or something like that, they could play the card and say, look at all our comments. Everything we said was we want this guy back. At no point did we say we wanted to move on from this guy, even though quietly that's probably how they feel.
Is the basis of them wanting to hold on to him that Doc Rivers was misrepresented and that's why Ben should not be angry with Simmons, with Rivers, if in fact that's the reason he doesn't want to be here?
I mean, I'll tell you this, like that's almost as funny. Doc Rivers trying to say he was misrepresented is almost as good as that time that Charles Barkley said he was misquoted in his own autobiography. Remember that?
Yeah.
When he wrote the first book and then he said, I didn't say that. Come on, dude. It's you talking to a tape recorder and your voice was there. Like, in this day and age, we can go back and play Doc's words. I don't think Doc's words were that bad, but for him to come out and try to spin and say like, oh, it was portrayed in a different way. Dude, you said it. You said it. What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, but guess what? Even if Doc said it and he admits, hey, I did say it, and look, that's what it is. I defended this guy all year in that moment, Game 7. That's what came out. Ben Simmons has to suck it up and say, look, he defended me all year. He said one thing. If that's what split that's why, to me, that couldn't be the straw that broke the camel's back to me. To me, Ben Simmons realizes that he can't face these fans because his game has not evolved. That's what that tells me.
I just can't stomach the fact that that's supposed to be what the grievance is that finally got Ben to say, I'm never going to play for that team again. You know,
Yeah, me neither.
I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
At the end of his run, Allen Iverson went and sucked it up and played for a different team, right? And then ultimately, we had like Allen 2.0. It wasn't the same, but he did come back. You know, I mean, guys reached their
Wasn't there a 3.0 too?
There might have been. I mean, I'll tell you what. And then,
well, they had so many like Allen Iverson nights. It was like Allen Iverson retirement jersey night. Allen Iverson never coming back to the. It was like so many. All right, before we roll, because there's a lot. We have like a minute 15 here.
Oh, okay.
Phillies, are you back in?
Well, I watched I had the game on last night and was talking to a high school friend, so I had the game on mute. And I started cursing at him, and he goes, what's so upset? And I go, it's 5-0. And then I said, it's 6-0. Like, I couldn't believe that they're losing the stinking Pirates with that score. And then slowly, with the sound off, the Phillies started to come back. Only until I watched the highlights later, because I was passively watching. Did you see that the Buccos bullpen was so invested in the game that they were playing cornhole in the bullpen? No. Did you see that?
No.
I was like, this is right up Gill's alley. You know, it's a September game. We're the Pirates. We don't give a bleep. So let's play cornhole in the bullpen. And then all of a sudden, how dare the Phillies come back? They actually had to stop the cornhole game and get a couple guys.
That's great. I did not see. No, I was at Chickies and Pete's yesterday. It was 2 outs. No balls and 2 strikes to a guy who's making his major league debut, his first at bat. And I said, I don't need to sit here to watch the last pitch here. The pitcher's up. I get in the car and I hear, and the Pirates now lead it 5-0. And I was like, what the heck happened?
Yeah. And I didn't Nolan get the win, by the way, in some
he stuck in there and pitched 6 innings.
Right. They turned it all the way around and Nolan's been bad. Like, make no bones about it. And I heard your guy earlier talking about that. Will I watch? Yes. Will I watch aggressively? No.
Come on,
my score. Let's see here. I heard somebody talking about it being a field goal game this morning. I'm going to say, well, first of all, I had a picture of Jake Elliott when he hit that 61-yarder against the Giants. What was it, 4 years ago today? Yep. So I'm going to go with Jake Elliott wins the game.
Wow.
I'm going to say 27-24. 27-24
Eagles. All right. Andrew DiCecco went 27-24 Cowboys. Pete Thompson's back on Tuesday. Joe and Margate, we'll see you Wednesday. Thanks for everybody who entered. We do appreciate the high volume of people who entered. There can only be one.
I love it.
See you, Peter.
See you, buddy. Have a good time at Fenway.
Here we go. 5 o'clock hour here on the Sports Bash. Casey Joyner is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook inside Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. It's one thought on every game, and the Eagles play on Monday night. So we'll have Casey back on Monday to give us one thought on every game and go a little deeper into the Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys, which obviously is a big game in the NFC East. We'll get one thought every game today for week number 3 with Casey Joyner from The Athletic. And, of course, the Philadelphia Inquirer, where we will take a little look at the Eagles after 2 games where Casey did this week over at the Inquirer. What metrics can tell us so far about the Eagles? That's Casey's column this week, a deep dive into the numbers and some of the trends that we'll take a look at about this team. And let's start there, Casey. Welcome back. Week number 3. I can't believe we're moving this fast, but 2 weeks of Eagles football. What are some of the metrics telling us about Nick Sirianni and the passing game? What are we seeing so far from the games he's called?
Well, he only threw one deep pass, I should say. Jalen Hurts only threw one deep pass in week 1, deep pass being defined as 15 or more yards through in the year per the NFL game book. But in the second game, he got a lot more aggressive against the Niners. He threw 8 deep passes, completed 2 for 117 yards. He could have had a third completion there, targeting Lenoir with the 36-yard touchdown pass that got called back. So I also like, though, here's the thing that really stood out to me. They threw vertical passes. Of their 8 vertical passes, 4 of them occurred on 1st and 10. So Sirianni's not waiting to when they get behind the chains or, hey, we need a long distance to get a first down. He doesn't mind being aggressive and calling vertical passes on those down and distances, which I wasn't thinking he was going to do after week 1, given how much they dink and dunked it. He will be aggressive, so that's a plus.
The first week, as we kind of chronicled, they didn't take any shots down the field. You said just one. In the second week, did he take too many shots down the field? And are they equipped to take those shots down the field?
When you've got Deommodore Lenoir in coverage, he's a rookie 5th-round pick. You want to see them throwing vertical passes at him. So that was the thing that I liked about it. He didn't just throw vertical passes. He picked out a target and said, this is somebody who's weak, and we're going to target passes at him. And frankly, let's face it, if they didn't have the goal line gaffes, and if Rager doesn't step out of bounds on that one play, that's 2 touchdowns, and they probably win that game. So I like the idea of being aggressive. When he's going to be aggressive, when the defense might not be expecting it, and who he's going after, that part, you got to give him a check mark on this.
That's what's so frustrating. They had that game with and that's being young, right? I mean, Rieger steps out of bounds, and you have a young play caller. The other day, I can't remember who was on that was suggesting, it was Adam Kaplan, who suggested that, hey, he's a first-time play caller, a more veteran. They don't have a veteran guy on the staff that maybe in that time down in the goal line could say, hey, maybe you should try to run the ball here instead of the young guy doing it all himself, freewheeling,
Well, he does have an experienced player, experienced coach in Jeff Stoutland. And if you ask offensive line coaches, there's a joke that went around. I actually don't think it's a joke. Somebody said, even in long distance situations, if it's 3rd and 36 and you ask an offensive line coach what he wants to do, he'll be like, run power, just run a counter play. That's their answer for everything. But frankly, he probably should have went to Stoutland on that goal line and said, hey, Jeff, you're the most veteran guy on the staff. What do you want to do? He's like, we've got one of the best offensive lines in the league. We run block really well. 4 shots. We don't even have to sneak Hurts. I get why you don't want to sneak a quarterback so he can get hurt. Fine, just run it 4 times. We can push these guys back.
Hey,
but
not to mention, Casey, we're going to get into the run game element in just a second here because you got a guy who's 6'8" and 385 pounds playing left tackle. How about taking one shot running behind him?
Yeah, running behind him, you've got one of the best run blocking centers in the league. You've got, they run block well across the. Actually, yeah, they've been run blocking. They led the league in good blocking rate last year. That's my run blocking metric. They led the league in that. They've had 2 really good games in this contest. It's not like San Francisco was stopping them. They were getting a high good blocking rate in that contest too. So if they're not stopping you running the ball, Bill Parcells said it many times. He said, if you're getting out the fastball, keep throwing the fastball. Don't bother changing it. And if you're running with games working, don't bother getting away from it, especially on the 1-yard line.
Casey Joyner's article at the Inquirer.com. The Philadelphia Inquirer looks at the Eagles' metrics through 2 weeks. I'm very interested to see what you found in the running game because I had people texting me earlier this week about Miles Sanders overrated and, the running game. I said the running game just feels nondescript so far, but Sanders is running at a good clip. I mean, they've done a good job of mixing. It just feels like they don't have an identity of what kind of running team they are. What have you seen?
No, they don't. They don't know exactly what they want to do. But mind you, they're getting good blocking. I mentioned that they led the league in that category last year, and they had a 46% rate last year. Now, that's over a whole season, 16-game seasons. You're going to have your ups and downs. This year so far, they have a 56.6% good blocking rate. So they're blocking better than they did last year. The problem is you're just not getting any breakaway plays from Miles Sanders. Last year, they had an 8.4 yard good blocking yards per attempt, how productive you are when you get good run blocking. That's the middle of the league. This year, they're at 7 yards per attempt. If to use last year's example again, if you posted 7 yards last year, you'd rank dead last in the league. And Miles Sanders has lost a couple of yards off his good blocking yards per attempt. They're just not getting the breakaway runs. But I think if you stick with the running game, that's when you get the breakaway runs, when you don't just go to it and then get back to the passing game. But again, he's got the owner telling him to pass the ball more. So he's got to convince the owner he can keep running, because I think they get breakaways then.
Well, all right. Like I answered to the question that came in about Miles Sanders, I said, well, you can't expect a 75-yard run every week. I mean, he has the ability to do it, and maybe the plays are there, but you can't expect it every week.
No, you can't. And the thing is, if you're getting – when I'm looking at the running game, I'm putting more weight on, are you getting good blocking? Because if you get good blocking, even if you've got the worst back in the league, Mike Davis was the worst back in the league last year among qualifying backs, a good blocking yard per attempt, still got 7 yards per attempt over the course of a season. Yeah, I mean, if you're getting 7 yards per attempt, if you're getting good blocking, you get it all the time, why would you stop running? You should just keep doing it. So if you can run block this well as they've been run blocking, they need to keep doing it. And again, he's got somebody pulling in the other direction to throw the ball, but they've got the horses up front to do it. And again, if you're on the goal line, especially, that's why I keep up ahead against the wall. You're on the goal line and you don't run the ball. I don't understand that. It was way too creative. And if you had a bad running game, I get it, but you got a great running game. So a great run blocking. So
well, he did say he drug himself through the mud this week, self-scouting himself. So who knows? Maybe he learned something from that. Casey Joyner from The Athletic and the Philadelphia Inquirer is here. Let's look at the metrics on defense. 23 points in 2 games. They gave up those 2 long drives, though, against San Francisco. But they're not giving up the big home. We've been doing this segment for years, and we talk about the X plays. They were getting killed on the deep ball, the big play. That hasn't happened so far. So the pass defense, what are you seeing?
It hasn't. And mind you, according to Pro Football Reference, the Eagles defense ranks 5th in scoring drive percentage, 3rd in yards per play, 2nd in pass yards per attempt. They're 12th in pass pressure rate, tied for 2nd in points allowed. That's really good. But what I was really impressed with is if you look at their individual players in yards per target, that's how many yards per target you're giving up. Anthony Harris is the highest rated safety in the league right now with a 2.7 yard mark on 9 targets. Vontae Maddox ranks 9th among cornerbacks, 3.9 yards per target on 7 targets. And Darius Slay has 4.1 yards per target. So, I mean, they're not getting beat individually. If they put their players in coverage, you're not beating them. So you're having to find seams or getting away from players in order to make any big plays. That's a lot harder to do than just saying we can go up against individual matchups. So Gann is doing a fantastic job so far.
Let's take a look at the Eagles on the pass rush, the against the run, because they lost Brandon Graham, so this is going to change a lot. So what's left over? How is it looking?
It's looking good overall. Again, that's a big loss for Graham. But in week 1, we were talking after that game that the 49 or the Eagles were playing a lot more 2-gapping, which is you're trying to occupy the linemen so your linebacker can go make the play. It's big change from what they did under Schwartz, and their linebackers looked kind of lost with it in week 1. They weren't really sure what to do. They wouldn't do terrible. It's just they weren't very quick and reactive to get to those plays that they needed to. This week, they ran a lot more 1-gap. I think they mixed in 2 gaps more and said, need to get back to that aggressiveness. They did much better. They dropped from a 50% good blocking rate allowed against Atlanta to a 37.5% mark last week against a very good San Francisco front. So I like that. We've been talking for years about when they give up good blocking, it always tends to be for big gains. That's been the huge problem. They ranked 29th or worse in my good blocking yards per attempt allowed in the past 4 years under Schwartz. It just was a problem they never fixed. This year, they're at 7.3 yards per attempt in that, and that's a 27% improvement over where they were last year. So they're not allowing big gains. And again, you're facing San Francisco last week, which is a team that can get big gains on the ground. So I like where they're at there. If they keep those trends up, this is going to be easily a top 10 defense.
All right. There's what the metrics say through 2 weeks. A big enough sample size now to get a couple of takeaways on the Eagles. We'll get the matchups to watch. Eagles-Cowboys coming up on Monday when Casey's back. But now it's time for one thought on every game in week number 3. Let's start with the Thursday night game last night. We saw Carolina's defense. They're pretty good.
Carolina's defense is superb. They play this 3-3-5 stack defense. So they stack the linebackers behind the the defensive linemen. They're playing a lot of two gaps and things. It's something not a lot of teams run. You can blitz a lot off of it. You can get maximum creativity out of your defensive coordinator. It's going to be a problem for offensive coordinators until they figure out how to do it, because it's just not something they see very well, and they've got a lot of talent. So Carolina's going to be able to ride their defense while CMC is out.
All right, Sunday matchups, here we go. Washington goes to Buffalo. I like Washington's defense. They haven't been as good as I thought, but Buffalo lose at home. They win big on the road. They're back home here against Washington.
Yeah, maybe Taylor Heineke's not as much of a dropout as we thought he was going to be, as the football team gained 407 offensive yards and 25 first downs in his first regular season start last week. Buffalo hasn't been as impactful on offense as expected, but an article I did for The Athletic this week, runs on every Monday, it shows they're being every bit as aggressive. It's not a lack of aggressiveness. They haven't changed their approach. They just haven't hit the big plays. I think they're going to be able to get big plays going, because Washington gave up 163 yards on the ground against the Giants. So put those together, it's in Buffalo. I'll take the Bills.
All right, Chicago making a quarterback change, kind of forced into it here, but they're going to Cleveland. It'll be Fields in Ohio, where obviously he played football, but Cleveland, this isn't like playing the Browns of old.
It's not. And Cleveland's running the ball very well. They've tallied consecutive games, 150 more rushing yards, and Baker Mayfield's thrown for 564 yards, I believe. Chicago's been stopping the run, though. They held the Rams and the Bengals to 74 and 69 yards, respectively. So I think Cleveland's going to have to throw the ball more. But by the way, though, the Bears also ranked dead last in vertical yards per attempt allowed. So I think you're going to see a lot of passing from the Bears. And you got Justin Fields. They just don't like. I mean, if they thought he was good enough, they would already put him in. And so that's a big problem. Plus, Cleveland's going to get OBJ back, so I'll take the Browns.
One thought every game: Baltimore, Detroit. Now, Baltimore's defense, not the same Ravens defense. I like Detroit's offense in the first half. It kind of got slowed down in the second half, but they do have a couple interesting weapons on that team. Their defense, not very good.
Their defense is terrible. They lost another starting cornerback. That's two starting cornerbacks they've lost in consecutive weeks. So I mean, they're as bad as they were. They're going to be even worse. I love how much of a fighting spirit they had, though. Dan Campbell was making fun of them about the kneecaps a bit, but they're fighting hard and they're being aggressive in offense. They're not just sitting back like they were last year as a passive team, but I mean, we just got that much of a talent disparity. I've got to pick the Ravens.
All right, let's go to Tennessee. It looks like they're not going to see Carson Wentz in this game, so you're probably going to get maybe a third-rate quarterback in this one. The Indianapolis Colts lost 2 at home. Now they got to go to Tennessee. Tennessee, they saved their season last week. I don't want to say save their season, but that was a much-needed road win for the Titans.
I wonder how badly their players would have questioned their coaches if they'd had a second week in a row like that, because you were getting a bit of a sense that there was some infighting there. But I mean, they put up 532 yards against Seattle, 182 yards from Derrick Henry. It looks like Todd Downing finally figured out that, hey, maybe we should smash Henry up in the line and then do a lot of play action passes, get back to what they were. Colts allowed 241 yards rushing their first 2 games of the season. They had trouble covering the deep threats. I think A.J. Brown and Julio Jones would do well with this one. Yeah, and add the Colts offensive injuries as noted in the game being in Nashville. I give Tennessee a check mark.
Okay, Kansas City defense not very good. We can see they're struggling to stop the run, and we are seeing this might be a problem. I was very disappointed with the Chargers last week, however, only scoring 20 against Dallas. This is supposed to be a good offensive team. So can they put up enough points against this bad Chiefs defense?
Shades of what they were the last couple of years, where they have games that they should win and they just find a way to lose. And that's a frustrating thing. So you figured it was taken care of, but now we're seeing shades of that. But as you mentioned, Kansas City, 404 yards on the ground in 2 games. That's what they gave up. That's just terrible. And Los Angeles gave up, though, 198 rushing yards last week and allowed 126 rushing yards in week 1. So both teams are going to run the ball pretty well. I just think that even if the Chargers play well on offense, you've got Hill and Kelsey, and as good as the Chargers can be on offense, I don't think they're quite that good. And that's also a home game for Kansas City. So I'll give them that by a small margin.
All right. New Orleans, tough to read them. They look great one week. They lose last week. New England, they're very close to the vest, this New England team so far. At home against the Saints here. Can they make it 2 straight?
I mean, how many would you ever expected to see a Sean Payton offense generate 128 yards and 2 turnovers in 1 game? That was terrible last week. And then now they got to face the Panthers. And mind you, Bill, about that defense ranks 2nd in turnover drive percentage. They're getting a lot of picks. I mean, you're just not going to have New Orleans throwing the ball very much. And Mac Jones is playing percentage football. So you add it all up, and being in New England, it's going to be a close contest, but I'll take the Patriots.
Very close to the best that New England team has been so far. All right, let's go. 2 bad teams. Atlanta's going to New York. I mean, Atlanta, they're in the race for one of the maybe the worst team in the league so far. New York, they're a guy going all sides from being 1-1 and really changing the way you think about them.
Yeah, and the offensive line injuries have not been good. And Barkley's looked good in the small places where they're playing him. I mean, he's got some of his bursts back, but he's shaking off some of the rust. So I think that's going to be an improvement for them down the road. But Arthur Smith, I mean, you think he's bringing in there for his offensive play column. They look good at it for a time against Tampa last week, but I mean, the Falcons defense has given us 66 offensive points and 775 offensive yards. The Giants, as bad as they've been, I see them being at home and being able to make just a few more plays than Atlanta, because as bad as the Giants are, they're not as bad as the Falcons.
Yeah, Atlanta had a lead late in that game too. Not late, but like in the fourth quarter late. They had the lead, and then 2 interceptions by Matt Ryan. All right, Cincinnati's going to Pittsburgh. They look great in week 1. They looked terrible last week, so we don't know who they are right now. And Cincinnati always looks terrible.
Yeah, Cincinnati always looks terrible. They're going to be missing T. Higgins, and there's a talk about Ben Roethlisberger having a pec injury, but he's going to play this week. They lost one of their defensive linemen, Hyson Alalo. He's really good. May not have T.J. Watt for this contest, and the Steelers have allowed 796 offensive yards in the first 2 games. That's just awful. But they've, I still think the Bengals, they've got the issues of Burrow. He looked like there was talk in the preseason that he wasn't, it was like struggling. That showed up last week, and I still think the Pittsburgh defense has enough talent, and it's on that side of the ball, and it's in Pittsburgh, so I'll take the Steelers.
All right, one thought every game. Let's go to Jacksonville. Arizona has a chance to go 3-0, and Jacksonville could be 0-3, and there's no reason to make me think that that's not going to happen.
I mean, Urban Meyer's already asking fans to not give up after 2 games. Like, this is not college, Urban. You're going to lose a couple of games in the NFL. It's going to happen. Think about the Cardinals, though. 890 yards and 72 points in 2 games. I mean, that's incredible. Jacksonville ranks 26th in yards per attempt and 25th in rushing yards allowed. I just don't think they're going to be able to keep up with Arizona at all. If this was in Arizona, I would just say it is a slam dunk 10-point game, but it's pretty darn close to that with even going in Jacksonville.
Jets, another bad football team. They're going to Denver. Denver has a chance to get to 3-0 all of a sudden, and a lot of people like this Denver team. They weren't sure about the quarterback. Well, where are we at now?
I mean, the Jets have problems at quarterback, and the Broncos, Bridgewater. He's, we talk about him every week as a high percentage quarterback. He does a lot of things well, but I mean, Robert Saleh's already got their defense playing well. They're tied for 10th in points allowed and tied for 9th in yards allowed per play, but Zach Wilson just looked really overmatched. And mind you, Vic Fangio is not quite in Bill Belichick's class, but he's darn close. So I think that it's going to be another bad day for Wilson. I'll take Denver.
All right, one thought every game with Casey Joyner from The Athletic and the Philadelphia Inquirer. Let's look at Miami and Vegas. Vegas is another team there's a lot of surprise 2-0s. Miami, no Tua this week. They got to go to Vegas here. And Miami, all of a sudden, that tanking for Tua doesn't seem like it worked out so well.
It didn't. And mind you, I mean, Vegas, Brian Flores for Miami, he's got a problem. He's one of the most creative problem solvers, but he can't. The defense hasn't played well this year. Miami's only scored 17 points on offense. They rank dead last in offensive scoring drive rate. They're not going to have Tua. I mean, and Jacoby Brissett looked terrible last week. By the way, though, the Ravers, John Gruden is turned Derek Carr into an early season MVP candidate. He ranks first in passing attempts, first in passing yards. He's 5th in vertical attempts. They're doing he does fantastic. However you take apart his metrics. And not only that, Miami, again, because the problems they have being on the road and such. And the Raiders, by the way, they are first in pass pressure rate despite being last in blitz rate. Their defense is. So I really like the Raiders a lot in this one.
Well, interesting. All right, Tampa Bay, L.A. We got that game for you right here on 97.3 ESPN. Could be the game of the weekend. The Rams are a home underdog in this game, by the way. 2-0. This one should be a slugfest.
Do not understand why they're a home underdog, because usually the home team is going to get a 3-point edge, just generally speaking. And so now if they're saying they're a 1-point dog, are they saying they think Tampa's 4 points better than the Rams? I don't see it, because as great as they're playing in offense, the Bucs rank 30th in passing yards allowed and 23rd in overall yards allowed. And they lost Murphy Bunting in the first game, and they have really had some problems in their secondary. And the Rams lead the league in scoring drive rate and net yards per pass attempt. They've also been stout against the pass. They're tied for 5th in yards per attempt, and they're tied for 5th in sacks at a cross-country trip for Tampa. I'm taking the Rams in this one.
Oh, I like, I'm surprised they're an underdog at home in this one, too. Tampa, too, struggled last week against the Falcons. All right, Seattle going to Minnesota. Seattle lost at home last week. Now they got to travel, and Minnesota just feels like either they're just really bad or maybe we've been waiting for them to break out for too long. It feels like it's been a year and a half now.
I think this might be a case where the team, what did Al Davis used to say, so that you only have so many years for a coach before the team finally starts to tune him out. I'm not saying that Zimmer's getting tuned out and such, but that team is not the kind of team he wants it to be. They've given up 61 points, 41 first downs, and 837 offensive yards in the first 2 games of the season. They had some injuries last week. I mean, come on, you can't give up. And they, again, mind you, and they missed a game-winning field goal, which has been a problem for them too. Seattle looks a lot like they did last year. Carroll and Zimmer don't want to get into shootout games, but I like Carroll's defense just a little bit more. Even though it's in Minnesota, Seattle travels really well. The travel doesn't bother them. And I like Russell Wilson big time over Kirk Cousins. I'll take Seattle.
All right, one thought every game Sunday night. We have it for you right here on 97.3 ESPN. Green Bay has struggled a lot in San Francisco. Green Bay looked better in the second half. San Francisco obviously clunky on the road in Philly last week. They get their first home game, so this one should be very telling for both teams.
It should be. I mean, Green Bay, they win over the Lions, but for the first half, I mean, they were behind at halftime. It's like, really, this is not now that would have been 6 quarters where they weren't playing like you thought they were, and they beat a Lions team that was now down another cornerback. I mean, to beat the Lions is not a big thing, and they didn't dominate them as well as they should have. San Francisco, they've got tons of problems in their backfield. Now Mitchell looks like he's doubtful. It looks like it's going to be Trey Sermon's going to go, and he got hurt last week, and he's just got out of the concussion protocol. Having said that, it's a cross-country trip. I got Kittle's not playing as well as he could, but I like the matchup for him. Debo Samuel's been playing fantastic. I like the other San Francisco players and their big playability, and I know Green Bay brings some big playability, but I just don't think they're playing to the level that they should, so I'll take San Francisco.
All right, Monday we'll be back with one thought on every Week 3 game. We'll recap the week and take a look at the matchups to watch in the Eagles and the Cowboy game on Monday night with Casey Joyner. He'll be back on Monday at 5 o'clock. Right here on 97.3 ESPN. Check out his stuff in The Athletic and the Philadelphia Inquirer. And, of course, Mondays and Fridays right here on the Sports Bash. All right, Casey, enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Casey Joyner is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook inside Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. He'll be back on Monday's show for a recap. One thought every game, Week 3, plus the matchups to watch in the Eagles game against the Dallas Cowboys. We'll have all that for you here on the Sports Bash Live. Sports Bash is brought to you by my good friends over at the DraftKings Sportsbook. This weekend, get a chance to win with all the great DraftKings odds they got going on, the odds boost. Use my code, promo code 973. That's my code 973 for DraftKings this year. And, of course, for all new members, you get a chance to win, to walk out with plenty of great opportunities and prizes and money. That's code 973 for a limited time only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. You must be 21 or older, New Jersey only, new customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. When we come back, Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, covers the NFL. We'll talk a little NFC East. How big of a weekend is it in the NFC East? One team has a chance to pull away. Not pull away, I shouldn't say that. But one team with a loss might already be out of this thing. We have that coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. 5:29 here on a Friday, happy hour Friday. Hopefully you're enjoying your happy hour Friday. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill, taking it till 6 o'clock tonight. Josh has game night tonight. Plenty of things to discuss as we do on a Friday. We have plenty of things in play. Obviously, the Eagles and the Cowboys is at the top of the list. The Ben Simmons stuff, which real quick on this Ben Simmons front. Go to 97.3ESPN.com. There is a team that apparently is ready to make a pretty significant offer for Ben Simmons. Is it an offer that you would be interested in? Check it out now at 97.3ESPN.com. Check that out now on our website. Or download the free mobile app, and you can get all our Sixers, Eagles, Phillies, and Flyers content, plus local high school sports over at 97.3ESPN.com and the free mobile app. Jeff Kerr's appearance on the Sports Bash is brought to you by the expert solar team of New Jersey, EMT Solar and Roofing and Solar Guardians. Start your solar journey today by learning more and visiting ESPNsolar.com. Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports going to join us in just a second. But before we get to him, I want to give the Phillies lineup out tonight. Phillies, yes, Phillies. We're all back on board, Phillies. They've been taking us through this roller coaster. Herrera, Segura, Harper, Real Muto, Miller, McCutchen, Didi, Galvis, and Gibson. That's your lineup tonight for the Phillies as they play the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, the one thing I will say is the fact that the Pirates have a lefty who has good numbers against lefties pitching tonight. And they are going, the Phillies, with their lineup that they would use against right-handers. They're going with their kind of their quote-unquote best guys, if you will. So take that for what it is. They're not kind of rolling the lineup out there for a left-handed pitcher. They're not going with their right-handed bat. They're sticking with, in other words, Didi's in the lineup. Herrera, a left-hander, he's in the lineup. You got all these guys who are typically – sometimes they, Miller's in the lineup. Miller does not hit lefties very well. He's in the lineup tonight. So that's what you got with the Phillies tonight. There you go. All right. Now let's go back to the football. There's Jeff Kerr as we get the NFL week number 3. A lot of NFC East thoughts on my mind. We got the Eagles and the Cowboys. Jeff will be here on Monday to talk a little bit deeper on that. But NFC East, very interesting this week because one of the teams, Jeff, the Giants, playing a 0-2 team. They're 0-2. I don't want to say this feels like a desperate week for them, but if the Giants are to lose this week to Atlanta, they're 0-3, and I don't want to say they're out of this thing, but I feel like that game is very important for the G-men.
Yeah, they got to win this game, Mike. I mean, Atlanta's one of the worst teams in the NFL, and I'm not saying the Giants are any better either, but I think you and I would both agree if they played like they did against Washington and eliminate the stupid penalties and the mistakes and the fumbles, I think they win that game pretty easily. So, yeah, I agree. I think this is a very winnable game for the Giants. I think this is a game for the Giants to get back on track, get to 1-2, because you're going to have someone in the NFC East at 1-2 after Monday night, where it's the Eagles or Dallas. And Washington, I mean, they got a tough game in Buffalo. I'm not saying that they're going to lose the game, but I don't expect them to win in Buffalo. So if you beat the Falcons, you'll be right back in this, and every team in the division gets to play Atlanta, for better or worse, from an Eagles fan's perspective. But yeah, this is a game Giants have to win. If not, they're 0-3. I'm not going to count them out of it either because they did rebound from 1-5 start last year. But they definitely look like a team that's ready to implode.
Yeah, I know that if you look at the whole big picture for the Giants here, this is a game for the Giants that obviously, we just talked, like if they lose this game, they're 0-3, and everybody has a very similar schedule, but this is one of the games that's winnable for them, right? This is one of the games on their schedule that you would say, if I'm going to, if I'm going to start to feel like they can, like last year they started, 1-6 or 1-7, and then kind of turn the corner a little bit.
I remember I was mocking them last year because when they started out, I forget what it was, 2-7 or something. Like, well, that's great, but for wins are against Washington. So, what do you make of that? And now they only beat Washington. So you have to wonder, when's this team going to win a game? Because I thought Denver was a very winnable game for them, with or without Jay Bridgewater.
At home, right, at home.
Yeah, at home. And Denver kicked the crap out of them. And then, you turn around, 4 or 5 days, you play Washington on the road on Thursday Night Football, and you probably should have gotten away with a win there. And You didn't. So now you're 0-2. That's looking at you in the face. Now you got Atlanta. Again, this is a winnable game, but the way the Giants defense has played, Atlanta is also desperate 0-2. Something's got to give, Mike. And honestly, both of these teams look like they're going to be sinking ships, but at least the Falcons have a rookie head coach. The Giants, we might be starting to be questioning Joe Judge's job if they lose to the Falcons.
Well, that's interesting. All right, let's go to Washington and Buffalo. Another interesting one. Buffalo's a team that most people thought was a Super Bowl contender. Washington, obviously, they're hanging their hat on the defense. This is a tough spot for them to have to go to Buffalo. But, if Washington somehow was able to sneak this game in, they get to 2-1, and they're obviously tied with either Philly or Dallas. But this would be a pretty big win for them to go on the road and win at Buffalo.
It's a very convincing win, honestly, and they're the only team in the NFC East that plays Buffalo because of the 17th game. The NFC East winner plays the AFC East winner from last year, etc. So, this would be a huge win for Washington if they are able to beat Buffalo. Here's the problem, though, Mike. Washington, I think they're ranked 29th in pass defense. Buffalo needs to get their passing game going, and Josh Allen was not great in week 1. I thought he was a lot better in week 2. Had a lot of big plays. Stephon Diggs had a nice day. But overall, I feel like the Buffalo passing game, they're not as good as they were last year yet. I think this is a good week for them to get going. They have to get the running game going, too. Devin Singletary did have a good day against the Dolphins. Zach Moss had a couple touchdowns. But overall, I feel like I just can't see Buffalo losing their first 2 games at home. I just can't see it. I feel like everything's going to click, and their defense has been playing really well through the first 2 weeks.
Yeah. I want to ask about Mailata and what's going on there because Mike Garafolo reporting that it doesn't look good, that he would not play in the game on Monday night, and what that would mean if you have to go to Andre Dillard. And the fact of the matter is their defensive line is banged up, which essentially means more of Parsons on the defensive line, which might not be good.
No, you would expect Michael Parsons to go against Andre Dillard and make Andre Dillard's life miserable. The Eagles are going to go to Andre Dillard. Jordan Mailata can't play. I'm just trying to figure out how do you get a severe knee injury in practice. I don't want to call it.
They said somebody rolled up on him. Just a freak kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I guess these injuries happen, but it's very unfortunate for the Eagles and just bad timing. And I don't know how long Mailata is going to be out for. Hopefully it's only 1 week, if anything. But
MCL, they said it doesn't look like a long-term thing, but, this is an unfortunate week to have it happen.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want it while you're going for first place in the division against a divisional rival. Oh, by the way, your head coach kind of adds some fuel to the fire by the whole beat Dallas stuff and got Jerry Jones all riled up, got the players all riled up, CeeDee Lamb, Ezekiel Elliott, et cetera, et cetera. Now Dallas is motivated to play this game. I think you're going to see a lot of Michael Parsons on the defensive line now, especially Jordan Mailata out. I thought that was, having 2 of your starting offensive linemen down is not ideal for this game.
No, it's not. And I said the same thing as you. As soon as, I brought it up, I say Parsons. I'd put Parsons right over Dillard, right? And say, hey, let's see you. Everybody thinks you're the weak spot. Let's see. Because obviously, you line him up against Lane Johnson, that's a little tougher matchup than what Parsons dealt with last week.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I'm not bashing Chargers' offensive line here. The Chargers' offensive line is pretty good. Ryan Bulaga, but he's not Lane Johnson. Not at this stage in his career. He just isn't. But now you're going to go against Andre Dillard, who, as you said, Mike, he is the presumptive weak link on this offensive line, and this is going to be the baptism by fire. Again, I love using that Arthur Smith quote, but this is it. You're going to find out if Andre Dillard's any good or not, and if he's not, you got to cut ties with this guy.
I think the one thing, Jeff, you can maybe hang your hat on is, look, Dillard was a first-round pick. He did have some credibility coming in. He played that one game at right tackle, and I think that's the one game that everybody remembers. When he played left tackle, he held his own. He wasn't an all-pro. But if he doesn't want to be a backup, this is the game to put on tape to say, somebody call and get me out of here.
Yeah, exactly. And it may not even have to be this year. It may even be next year. But yeah, you're right. This is your opportunity, kid. This is your opportunity. I always remember what some NFL players tell me. Sometimes we're auditioning for 31 other teams too, not just the team we're playing for. It's just that's the team we're wearing the uniform. And they're absolutely right, because Andre Dillard more than likely is not going to be here after this season. And if he plays well, filling in for Jordan Mailata for a game or two, all of a sudden you have a trade asset. And you may be able to move him by week 8. You may be able to move him at the end of the season and say, hey, look, this guy's a former first-round pick. We like him. It's just he can't play right tackle, but you need a left tackle. So help us help you. And that's what Andre Dillard can provide for his career right now. And if it works out somewhere else, great. Like I said, I agree with you, Mike. I don't think he's been a bad player, but we all remember the right tackle experiment. It is what it is. It's the kid. I'm more worried about the kid's confidence than anything, because it seems like when things go bad for him, I don't want to say he quits, but it just seems like, he kind of folds.
Oh, there are a lot of questions have been about the toughness that he brings to the table. And that night against who did he play right tackle against? He did not have a good night, and I feel like that's what we all remember. But he's got an opportunity. And look, you're hoping that he goes out there. I'm not saying makes it a tough decision for the Eagles. They've made their decision. They signed Jordan Mailata. But this is a game for Dillard to say, hey, if somebody else wants me, I got to get on tape. This is my opportunity. I hope he takes advantage of it. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. That said, Jeff Kerr, last year this team had problems with injuries to the offensive line. They're down 2 already for this game.
Yeah, not exactly ideal, huh, Mike? This isn't.
No, but I mean, Dallas, we talked to Todd Archer earlier, and he said, look, they're down 3 defensive linemen, so they've got their problems.
Yeah, they're beat up as well. So I guess it's going to be who's going to be the toughest. But again, that's why Michael Parsons is playing on the defensive line, because everybody was beat up. And I was really hoping to at least have Jordan Mailata in this game, because I thought Landon Dickerson would play much better this week than he did last week, instead of getting thrown in there in his first game and all that. I think a week with the stars will do him good. But hey, maybe the same will happen with Andre Dillard. Like you said, Mike, he was a first-round talent for a reason. These guys sometimes they do happen to show up, even though not all the time. I used to think of Danny Watkins, as bad as he was. I'm like, okay, the guy was drafted in the first round for a reason. Someone must see something in him. And that never happened. But you've had guys like Lester Holmes before, a former first-round pick. Every once in a while, he would show flashes of brilliance.
That Watkins thing, I mean, I used to host a show with Danny. Very nice kid. The stories he told me, though, I mean, he told me the Eagles were the only team that worked him out as a guard. Now, the guy had no football experience hardly ever, and he's like, I never played guard before in my life, and they're the only team. He said every other team looked at him as a tackle, and the Eagles played him at guard, and he just couldn't get it, man. He just couldn't, and he didn't love it. I mean, that was evident. I mean, talking to him, he didn't know the game. I mean, I asked him one time about Walter Payton. He didn't know who he was. I mean, it was just a bizarre, very nice kid, though. I will say he was very nice. He just didn't have the passion, man. He didn't love it. So that whole thing. But
what's so weird about Danny Watkins is that's the last first-round pick Andy Reid has screwed up. Like, he's been hitting it left and right with first-round picks since Danny Watkins, Fletcher Cox, Patrick Mahomes, Marcus Peters, you name it. He has not screwed up on first-round picks. And you wonder why the Chiefs are so good. It's almost like, okay, how did Danny Watkins come about, sandwiched in between Brandon Graham and just all these first round picks Andy Reid's had? I mean, really, it's mind boggling.
Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. Give me your thoughts on the NFL Super Wild Card Weekend. They're going to play a Monday night wild card game. When will that team play? The winning team. When will they get stuck playing? So the winning team, the reports are, and I've heard this too, it's going to be Sunday. And I'm hoping it's the late afternoon game, Sunday, divisional weekend. Now, for everybody that's in an uproar over this, I get it. I am too. But you have to remember something. I've watched plenty of wild card weekends where the team that wins on Sunday has to play the number 1 seed that Saturday, a.k.a. a short week. So what's the difference between winning Sunday night at 8 o'clock or Monday night at 11 o'clock and playing 6 days later? Again, it's been that way for the end of time. Everybody goes, well, the almighty TV dollar. Well, yeah, the almighty TV dollar is what pays my salary. So I'm not really going to complain about it too much. If CBS gets the Monday night wildcard game, I'm thrilled. I'm assuming it's going to be ESPN. But I got to get my thoughts in on this. The NFL had something awesome going with Super Wildcard Weekend. I'm like, do we really need 14 teams in the playoffs? And yeah, I was bought in. The Saturday 1 o'clock game. Saturday at 1, Saturday at 4:30, Saturday at 8,
do it again on Sunday. That was an awesome weekend of football, Mike. We used to say divisional weekend was the best weekend of football, and I was always the big fan of Wild Card Saturday on ABC when they had that with the doubleheader and stuff, and then they took that away from us years ago. And Super Wild Card Saturday was like the way to bring it all back. Now they kind of cut it again, but still, though, the NFL did have a good thing going with 3 games on Saturday and Sunday. But I get it. Monday night at 8:15 will always trump Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock in the rings. It's just the way it is.
So you're getting a Monday night playoff game this year on Wild Card Weekend. We'll leave you with this. Jeff Kerr, the Panthers win last night. They're on the Eagles' schedule coming up in 2 weeks. They play at Carolina. They are a perfect 3-0. And the last time the Panthers were 3-0, they went to the Super Bowl, and that defense looks like a Super Bowl defense.
Yeah, I wrote about this too. So last 2 times Panthers started 3-0, they went to the Super Bowl. The 3 of the 4 times they went 3-0, they went to at least a championship game. All those years they had a top 10 defense and points allowed and yards allowed. Guess what they have this year, Mike? A top 10 defense and points allowed and yards allowed. It's insane. And everybody goes, well, look who they played. I'm like, I don't really care. It's the NFL. I think the Texans are bad. I think the Jets are bad. They're still NFL teams.
And guess what? Tampa Bay gave up 25 to Atlanta, and Atlanta stinks. Yep. So I hate the whole look who they played. I get it. Like, you play who you play. But when you dominate them, those teams didn't move the ball at all.
No, and that's the thing. It's like everybody's like, oh, Houston's offense is bad, and they got a rookie quarterback. Well, I hate to tell you this. Carolina's defense is pretty good, too. I mean, they are really going to miss J.C. Horn. Let's not kid ourselves here.
That's true.
And I think their offense is going to take a massive hit with Christian McCaffrey out.
I like what Hubbard brings to the table, though.
I do, too. Like, I have him on a fantasy football team, so I'm kind of excited here. But, look, I'm not going to discredit this football team. They allowed 573.
Oh, I like them. I like their defense. I like that defense. To me, that's a legit defense right there. But You're right. Losing Horn, that's a loss. We'll see. All right, Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, Eagles Monday night. He'll be back on Monday to give us a pick on that game, and we'll preview the matchup right here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I'm sure you're all geeked up for Penn State.
I am. It's funny. Growing up, I grew up a huge Villanova basketball fan. Always liked Jay Wright, but Penn State was where I went to school. I like Penn State. I love Penn State football. I love Penn State basketball. I wish Villanova and Penn State never playing basketball, so I guess I'm getting them in football. Go Penn State, Villanova. Please don't shock the world. I know Villanova's a really good football team. It's probably the other football team I watch outside of Penn State, but do not beat Penn State. Do not ruin myself this weekend. We need some good things to happen here in Happy Valley. So,
that's a noon game. All right, Jeff Kerr, have a good weekend, man.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, Mike.
All right, man. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. And you can, of course, follow him on Twitter at Jeff Kerr, CBS, and all his NFL coverage. When we come back, we'll wrap up this week's show. Holy mackerel. Can you believe we've reached the finish line? I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Do me a favor. Download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show as we get ready to wrap up a Friday edition. All right, 5 before we get ready to get out of here. 5 minutes left to go, typically. I'm Mike Gill. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. Hopefully everybody remembers we got a busy weekend for you. And on this weekend, Saturday, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, right here on 97.3 ESPN, followed by Yankees and Red Sox. I'll actually be at that game tomorrow. Yankees, Red Sox, 4 o'clock start after Notre Dame, Wisconsin, followed by West Virginia and Oklahoma. So we got a little triple header for you on a Saturday of live games. Sunday, it's a NFL triple header. Chargers, Chiefs, Bucks, Raiders, Packers, Niners, right here on 97.3 ESPN. On Monday night, we've got Eagles and Dallas. On Tuesday and Wednesday, we've got Phillies and Braves. On Tuesday, Phillies and Braves on Wednesday, and then Thursday night football. So we got it all for you here on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up, Josh has game night tonight, and, of course, the guys in the locker room on Saturday at 10, and Billy and Pete on Sunday in the locker room leading into the NFL football. For more, go to 973ESPN.com or download the free mobile app. I told you right now, a report, there is a team that monitors and is interested in the Ben Simmons situation. Are they ready to make an offer? Go to our website, 973ESPN.com, to get the details. And speaking of which, Joel Embiid was ranked in the top 10 of Sports Illustrated's top 10 players. Find out where he landed on the list right now. Go to 973ESPN.com. Speaking of Joel Embiid, report yesterday that he is a full go for Sixers camp. He will be ready to go. And speaking of 973ESPN.com, a trio of Sixers landed on that Sports Illustrated top 100 list, including Ben Simmons. Yep, Sports Illustrated still thinks he's a top 100 player. Find out where he landed on the list. 3 other Sixers landed on the list, so 4 Sixers in the top 100. Joel Embiid, top 10. Ben Simmons, I'll give you a little hint. He's in the top 50. All right, he's in the top 50, Ben Simmons. Tobias Harris was number 50, and Seth Curry also in the top 100. Check it out at 973ESPN.com. Plus, check out all the former Eagle players who were nominated for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. There's like 40 of them, it feels like. That's right now at 973ESPN.com. All right, Josh has game night coming up next, and I'm Mike Gill. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. I will be back on Monday. Have a great night.